In the capital, the annual talent competition for noble ladies is held to select a consort for the Prince of Yang. In my previous life, I was the one who won the competition. He married me as his principal consort, while Shen Zhaozhao, the one he truly loved, fell ill and passed away in sorrow. After he ascended the throne, he did not make me his empress. Instead, he placed Shen Zhaozhao's memorial tablet on the empress's throne and forced me to kneel before it for 3 days and 3 nights. If you hadn't broken Zhaozhao's strings, she would have been the one to win. It was you who kept us from being together. This throne should have been hers. He accused my father, the Prince of Shipping, of crimes, confiscated his property, and executed him to appease his imperial wrath. My mother, overwhelmed with grief, crashed into the coffin and died. The Zhao family fell into ruin from then on. In this lifetime, during the noble ladies' talent competition, I injured my own wrist and withdrew from the contest. He wanted to spend his life with Shen Zhaozhao, just the two of them, and I let them have their wish. The winner of the talent competition is Shen Zhaozhao, daughter of the Minister of Rights. The chief examiner loudly announced the name of the first place winner. Everyone whispered among themselves. It turns out she won first place. I heard Zhao Shuyi sprained her wrist and couldn't participate in the competition. Shen Zhaozhao is really lucky. Wasn't the Yang prince's consort favored by the emperor and empress Zhao Shuyi? But it was agreed that the first place would be the Yang prince's consort, a rule set by the Yang prince himself. Yang prince by Zhisheng, his face filled with joy and delight, tightly held Shen Zhaozhao's hand and stepped forward. Father, mother, this is the consort I have chosen. The Yang prince's eyes were full of tenderness, while Shen Zhaozhao's face was flushed with shyness. Red as if about to bleed, yet she never loosened her grip on the Yang prince's hand. Everyone looked at me with sympathy, their eyes fixed on my wrist still wrapped in gauze, clearly waiting to see what would happen next. Even the empress seemed hesitant to speak to me. After all, it was the empress who had hinted at selecting me as the crown prince's consort, and she had even privately discussed the matter with my father, the Prince of Shipping, to ensure he wouldn't arrange a marriage for me elsewhere. But now, something unexpected had suddenly happened. The empress hesitated for a moment before asking Bai Zhiqing, "Is there another woman you like? Your father is in a good mood today. If you speak up, perhaps he will grant your request." She then glanced at me, hinting that if he mentioned my name, the emperor might order him to take 2 consorts at once. But the empress was mistaken, for I had no desire to marry His Highness. The Prince of Yang, again, in my previous life, the Prince of Yang accused me of breaking Shen Zhaozhao's zither strings, preventing her from winning the competition, yet that was something I would never stoop to doing. Had he calmly considered my usual character, he would have known it was not in my nature. But when he saw Shen Zhaozhao weeping softly, his heart ached for her. Shen Zhaozhao pulled her hand away from his and said, "I know Sister Shuyi dislikes me, but all I want is a fair chance to fight for a place by your side. Why can't she even grant me that? Is it only because her father is the Prince of Pingxi?" With those words, she planted the seeds of disaster that would later lead to the Prince of Yang, after ascending the throne, ordering the execution of my father. It was only later that I learned that in my previous life, when I played that long-lost ancient melody during the competition, even the instructor of the Guqin at the Imperial Academy nodded in satisfaction. My ancient tune caused all the flowers in the Imperial Garden to bloom. Seeing that the tide had turned against her, Shen Zhaozhao deliberately broke her strings to feign defeat. In this life, I will not give her another chance. I would rather pretend to accidentally injure my wrist at the banquet the day before, making me unable to participate in today's competition, than leave any room for criticism again. If they wish to be together, I will let them have their way in this life. I will stay as far away from them as possible. Upon hearing the empress's question, Prince Yang declared loudly, "Mother, Zhaozhao is the only woman I have ever loved. Now that she has won first place, I beseech you to grant her the title of my principal consort. In this life, I only wish to be with Zhaozhao, one man and one woman, for a lifetime." The empress sighed helplessly. "I have no objection to you making her your principal consort. However, as the legitimate son of your father and me, you cannot have only one consort. You must ensure the continuation of the royal lineage. Do you understand? She looked at Shen Zhaozhao, whose eyes were fixed only on the Prince of Yang. Perhaps love gives one boundless courage, as she took a step forward and said with a trembling voice, "Your Majesty, after I marry the Prince of Yang, I will do my utmost to bear children for the royal family. But the Prince of Yang has said that he will not take any other women. Every woman wishes to be with the one she loves, one man and one woman, for a lifetime. Your Majesty must have felt the same way, isn't that so? I beg your Majesty to grant us this wish and refrain from bestowing noble ladies upon the Prince of Yang as concubines." As soon as her words fell, the expressions of the noble guests in the hall varied. Especially the ladies from prominent families whose daughters had hopes of becoming the Prince of Yang's concubines, their faces turned ashen. Miss Shen is truly formidable. Even before becoming the principal consort, she's already forbidding the Prince of Yang from taking concubines. Which imperial prince doesn't have 3 wives and 4 concubines? Moreover, the Prince of Yang is the legitimate son of the Emperor and Empress. What is this about? Does she want the Prince of Yang to have few descendants? Whoever marries into the Prince of Yang's household in the future will likely have a hard time. It seems Miss Shen is about to gain the exclusive favor of Prince Yang. Upon hearing Shen Zhaozhao's words, Prince Yang, though aware it was inappropriate, still defended her. "I beg your Majesty to grant this." The Empress closed her eyes, waved her hand wearily, and said, "All of you may leave. An imperial decree will be issued in 3 days to confer the title of consort." Everyone filed out in succession. Before I could reach the palace gate, someone called out to me, "Sister Shuyi." It was Shen Zhaozhao. The maid behind her held the jewelry bestowed by the Prince of Yang. She stepped forward with a smile, saying, "I'm sorry, Sister Shuyi. I didn't expect you wouldn't compete today. I thought you would win." I smiled faintly. "Congratulations on achieving your wish, sister." Her eyes reddened. "Will you blame me? I know the Empress favored you more, but I truly love the Prince of Yang. He also said he would marry me. For his sake, I had to disregard our sisterly bond. Please don't blame me. This pomegranate pearl hairpin was given by the Prince of Yang. I give it to you as a token of our sisterly affection, wishing you an early marriage to a noble husband and the blessing of children soon." I took the jewelry. But before I could speak, the hairpin in my hand was snatched away by a man's hand. "This is what I gave you. Why are you giving it to someone else? It's meant to bless us with a child soon after we marry. How could you be so careless?" Shen Zhaozhao looked at the Prince of Yang with a shy expression. "Your Highness, my sister is upset about not being selected." I wanted to cheer her up. "Don't be so stingy." The Prince of Yang looked at me mockingly. "Upset, Zhao Shuyi. It was the Empress Dowager who liked you, not me. I hope you understand that. The Empress Dowager likely values your father's support, but if I ascend the throne in the future, I will be the son of heaven, and everyone will be my subjects, all supporting me. Isn't that right? I will not rely on a woman's favor to secure my reign, and I have never said I would marry you. In the past, I enjoyed our conversations, finding you generous and witty. But I never imagined you harbored such great ambition to become the Princess of Yang." Watching the two of them play off each other, I grew weary of dealing with them. I took a step back and said, "Your Highness, I entered the palace for the talent competition only by imperial decree. All unmarried legitimate daughters of officials of the 3rd rank and above in the capital were required to participate. As for talk of relying on connections to secure the throne or marrying me, let's not speak such nonsense, lest the Princess of Yang take offense. If she were to take offense, thinking your Highness implied her maternal family lacks influence, how would the Princess of Yang handle such a situation?" With that said, I turned and walked away. Shen Zhaozhao was inherently suspicious and petty. Her father was merely the Minister of Rights, and the Ministry of Rights was the least powerful among the 6 ministries, compared to my father, the Prince of Pingxi. Her family background was truly insignificant. 3 days later, as soon as the imperial decree was issued appointing Shen Zhaozhao as the Princess of Yang, she immediately organized a flower viewing banquet and invited noble ladies from the capital. Given the Prince of Yang's influence, who would dare not attend? At the flower viewing banquet, Shen Zhaozhao was dressed in dazzling splendor, adorned with jewelry gifted by the Prince of Yang and the Empress. though not yet officially a princess. She carried herself with the full air of one. I recalled in my previous life, she was beloved by the Prince of Yang for her simple and elegant style, her preference for understated jewelry, and her fresh, refined charm. I wonder if the Prince of Yang in this life, upon seeing her like this, would still praise her as someone untouched by worldly dust. Shen Zhaozhao tightly held my hand in front of everyone. Sister, when I get married, could you be my bridesmaid? Accompany me into the palace on my wedding day, with a few good sisters by my side. I won't be as afraid. Her face wore a pleading expression, but her eyes held a triumphant smile. In her mind, she was already the winner in life, and this was her way of publicly embarrassing me. You are the Princess of Yang. Whoever you choose as your companion, who could refuse? Surely no one in the capital would deny my princess this favor. Zhao Shuyi, isn't that right? The speaker was the Prince of Yang, who had just walked in. Shen Zhaozhao was hosting a ladies' flower viewing banquet, and the Prince of Yang had come to show his support. He truly doted on her dearly. Everyone was watching me, waiting to see how I would respond. If I agreed, it would mean submitting to the status of the Princess of Yang. If I refused, it would be seen as disrespecting the Prince of Yang. The Prince of Yang was full of confidence, and Shen Zhaozhao was beaming with pride. But they had forgotten that my father was the Prince of Pingxi, who commanded a powerful army. Apart from the Emperor and Empress, I didn't need to bow to anyone. I pulled my hand away from Shen Zhaozhao's grasp. I'm sorry, but I may not be able to attend the Princess of Yang's wedding. My father has sent someone to take me home, and the departure date happens to be the same day as the wedding of the Princess of Yang and the Prince of Yang. Shen Zhaozhao looked at me, her eyes brimming with tears. Are you angry with me, sister? Otherwise, why would it be such a coincidence that the Prince of Pingxi has sent for you right now? The maid beside me answered on my behalf. The person sent by the prince to fetch the young lady arrived last night. He said that a marriage has already been arranged for the young lady, since the young lady has been in the capital for over half a year. It is time for her to return home to embroider her wedding dress and prepare for the marriage. As soon as the words were spoken, the Prince of Yang's expression changed drastically. You're returning to the northwest. When your father sent you to the capital, wasn't it to find a noble husband here and marry in the capital? I know you're upset that I chose Zhaozhao as my consort. What if I promise you that, after the wedding, I will take you as my concubine? Shen Zhaozhao's face changed color. Before she could speak, I smiled and said, What kind of joke is your highness making? Didn't you just tell the Empress in the Great Hall the other day that you and Sister Shen would be devoted to each other for life? Moreover, how could the legitimate daughter of the Zhao family ever become a concubine? The Prince of Yang gritted his teeth. Zhao Shuyi, must you insist on being the principal consort? Are you really so concerned with such a hollow title? I looked at him, bewildered. Your Highness, I never said I wanted to be your principal consort. I've just been in the capital for a long time, and my parents miss me. I have no relatives here in the capital, so it's only natural for me to return home. Surely your Highness wouldn't forbid someone from going home. The Prince of Yang's expression grew increasingly dark. What if I refuse? What if I insist on marrying you? Your Highness may be disappointed, but I am already engaged to Miss Zhao. Does your Highness intend to take your subject's wife? I turned around and saw that the person who had entered was General of the Swift Cavalry, Song Lingfeng. He was dressed in sturdy attire, his face still bearing the dust of travel, likely having ridden 1,000 miles to reach the capital. He walked in and stood beside me, shielding me in an invisible way. The Prince of Yang stared at him intently. General of the Swift Cavalry, weren't you guarding the border? How dare you enter the capital without a summons? Song Lingfeng smiled. I have been ordered by the Prince of Pingxi to deliver a military report to His Majesty and to escort Sister Shuyi back to the northwest. The Emperor can understand my youthful impulsiveness in seizing the task of delivering the battle report to escort my fiancée, given that this victory was won so splendidly. His Majesty is unlikely to blame me. After speaking, he looked at me, his eyes holding no one else but me. Shuyi, the flower viewing banquet seems utterly dull. I've seen a place outside the city where the peach blossoms are blooming beautifully. Let me take you there. It's far more splendid than being confined in this small garden. I stood up with a smile and bid farewell to Prince Yang and Shen Zhaozhao. I must take my leave now. I fear I may have already departed by the time of your wedding day, so I wish you both a lifetime of happiness in advance. With that, I walked toward Song Lingfeng and followed him out of the estate. Prince Yang chased after me. Zhao Shuyi. Could it be that being this prince's consort is not as good as being the wife of a minor general? When the time comes and I ascend the throne, I promise to grant you the position of noble consort. How does that sound? Song Lingfeng mounted his horse and extended his hand to me. Do you still remember how to ride? I smiled and reached out my hand. Fortunately, I haven't forgotten. I mounted the horse and rode alongside him, galloping out of the city, leaving the words and presence of the Prince of Yang far behind. The Prince of Yang's wedding was a grand affair. On the morning of the ceremony, the carriage I was to depart in was also prepared and ready to set off. Unexpectedly, our carriage encountered the wedding procession on the streets of the capital. I had deliberately chosen a route that their wedding party would not take, but I never imagined that Prince Yang would select this very path. Dressed in his wedding attire, he blocked the carriage and asked, "Shuyi, are you truly leaving?" I gently lifted the curtain and replied, "Your Highness, today is your wedding day. Do not miss the auspicious hour." He dismounted his horse, approached the carriage, and with an inexplicable emotion in his eyes, said, "Shuyi, stay. I spoke in anger that day, and you know I have feelings for you too. I just didn't want you to use your family background to overshadow Zhao Zhao, making her feel inferior. If you can change these ways, I will beg my father to let me marry you as well, with the full ceremony of a princess. How does that sound?" After he finished speaking, he stepped forward to grab my hand, but Song Lingfeng seized him firmly. "Your Highness, Prince of Yang, your bride is in the wedding sedan. If you delay any longer, you'll miss the auspicious hour." The eunuchs and officials accompanying the wedding procession were already drenched in cold sweat, kneeling on the ground. "Your Highness, please don't cause trouble. We cannot miss the auspicious hour. The Emperor and Empress are waiting in the palace." The Prince of Yang gritted his teeth. "Get out of the way, Song Lingfeng. You are merely a subject. How dare you defy your superior?" Song Lingfeng stood his ground. "Your Highness, Prince of Yang, instead of properly marrying your own bride, you are publicly trying to take my fiancé. What kind of behavior is this? Even if this matter is brought before the Emperor, I will make it clear." Everyone stood still, watching the standoff between the Prince of Yang and Song Lingfeng. I spoke up, "Your Highness, General Song and I are deeply in love, and our wedding date is already set. Since your Highness is getting married today, why persist in this entanglement?" The Prince of Yang, his eyes bloodshot, said, "I told you, I regret it. I want to marry you. Zhao Shuyi, don't go with him. If you wish, I will take you as my principal consort. Will that do?" Shen Zhaozhao, having heard that the Prince of Yang had stopped my carriage and prevented me from leaving, disregarded the formalities. Wearing her wedding dress, she lifted her veil, stepped out of the sedan chair, and approached just in time to hear the Prince of Yang's words. Her face turned as pale as a sheet. "Your Highness, what did you say? You want to marry Zhao Shuyi as your principal consort? Then what about me? What am I?" She rushed over, tightly grabbing the Prince of Yang. "Didn't we promise to have only each other? That you wouldn't marry another woman? If you want to make her your principal consort, then what about me? Are you planning to abandon your wife and remarry?" The Prince of Yang impatiently shook off her hand. "What do you mean by abandon your wife and remarry? We haven't even performed the wedding ceremony yet. You've always been understanding. Just give way to Shuyi. Once you marry into the palace, I will certainly not treat you unfairly." Tears fell from Shen Zhaozhao's eyes like broken strings of pearls. "Your Highness, were all those promises you made just lies? Today is our wedding day. How could you choose this moment to say you want to marry another woman? Moreover, we have already consummated our marriage. Do you intend to abandon me and marry someone else?" As Shen Zhaozhao's words rang out, the commoners gathered to watch the royal wedding erupted in an uproar. "Ah, the daughter of the Minister of Rights actually had intimate relations with Prince Yang before marriage. How shameless, such a lack of modesty. And she still calls herself a lady of noble birth. What kind of distinguished woman has Prince Yang chosen?" She's not even as good as the daughters from our humble households. How can she have the nerve to openly admit to losing her chastity before marriage? Now the daughters of the Shun family will all have trouble finding husbands. As the clan leader, even if she were a princess, I would want to strangle her with a rope. For the royal family to marry such a shameless woman, it's laughable to even speak of it. The face of the matron from the empress's side, who had accompanied the Prince of Yang to welcome the bride, turned pale. The words grew louder and harsher, reaching the ears of the Prince of Yang and Shen Jiaojiao, who then realized she had spoken wrongly. Her face turned deathly pale as she took 2 steps back. No, I didn't. I was just talking nonsense earlier because I didn't want your highness to marry Zhao Shuyi. Your highness, you know how I feel about you, don't you? I interrupted their conversation. Your highness, I have no desire to marry you, whether as your principal consort or a secondary one. Moreover, I am already betrothed. I must ask your highness not to delay my return journey. My father is waiting for me at home. Brother Lingfeng, let's go. Song Lingfeng mounted his horse and said, let's set off, leading his father's elite black cavalry. He escorted my carriage through the wedding procession and rode away. I lowered the curtain and let out a long sigh of relief. This time, I had finally avoided marrying the Prince of Yang. Clenching my fists, I vowed that the tragedy of my past life would never repeat itself. I would protect my family. I returned to the Pingxi prince's mansion a month later. My mother came out from the inner courtyard to greet me, saying, my daughter has suffered. My father was also filled with anger. That scoundrel, the Prince of Yang, still thinks he's some kind of treasure. If it weren't for the Empress saying that Shuyi should go to the capital, would I have sent my daughter to the palace to be chosen as a princess consort for him? Song Lingfeng apologized on the side. Shuyi, my dear sister, the prince had no other choice but to have me say that you and I were engaged so we could bring you back. I apologize for any offense caused, if we hadn't said that. The prince was afraid the Empress and the Emperor wouldn't let you go, so, it was all just a temporary measure. The prince added from the side, it's not just a temporary measure. I think it would be quite nice for you two to marry. What if the Empress still has her eyes on you? You might as well marry Lingfeng. That way, you won't have to worry about those petty people. Mother chimed in from the side. I also think this is an excellent idea. You two grew up together, after all. It's not like you're strangers. I looked at my parents who were still alive and well, and at Song Lingfeng beside me, who also held military power. My eyes grew warm as I spoke. My marriage is entirely up to my parents. I have no objections. My marriage with Song Lingfeng was set for 3 months later. My father was overjoyed, and given his long-standing prestige in the Northwest, a steady stream of people came to offer congratulations and gifts. The emperor also sent Prince Qing to deliver congratulatory gifts. Prince Qing was the eldest son of the late empress and the emperor's firstborn. After the new empress gave birth to Prince Yang, he fell out of favor and began to keep a low profile, serving as a virtuous prince in the court. In addition to the gifts bestowed by the emperor, he also brought an edict conferring upon me the title of Jiahe County Princess. This was both to console me for not being selected as Prince Yang's consort and to appease my father. Song Lingfeng and his father warmly received Prince Qing, who also brought news of Prince Yang. On the day of Prince Yang's wedding, a commotion broke out in the streets. Before the newlyweds even entered the palace, the emperor and empress were already aware of everything that had happened. On their wedding night, Prince Yang and Shen Jiaojiao had a huge argument. Shen Jiaojiao smashed countless items in the hall, crying that Prince Yang did not love her, that the vows they once made had vanished in an instant, and that he had deceived her feelings and her innocence. Prince Yang was furious. What I need in my princess is grace, dignity, and propriety. Look at yourself now. What difference is there between you and an ignorant woman from the streets? You truly disappoint me. If I had known you were such a foolish person, I would not have abandoned Shuyi for you. I deceived your innocence. If you were truly an innocent woman, you would not have given in to me so easily that night. Shen Jiaojiao, what do you think you are, a chaste and virtuous woman? You were merely after the position of the crown princess. You want both wealth and honor, yet you also desire a good reputation. Where can such a good thing be found? From the very beginning, The empress was dissatisfied with Shen Zhaozhao. Yet she remained unaware. On the second day after the wedding, she went to the empress in tears, saying, "Mother, His Highness did not share the bridal chamber with me last night. He actually left me alone in the bridal suite. He must still be thinking of Zhao Shuyi. Mother, you must stand up for me." The empress looked at her coldly. "You can't even keep your own husband's heart, and you're already causing such a scene so soon after the wedding. What will become of you in the future? Moreover, Shunga is a prince and the legitimate heir. In the future, besides you, he will surely have other women. Do you expect me to intervene in such matters as well? I thought the Shen family was a distinguished and noble clan, and that the daughters they raised would be well educated and sensible. I never expected you to be so frivolous and useless. You have truly disappointed me." She then also reprimanded the Prince of Yang. "Shen Zhaozhao was your own choice. The Zhao Shuyi I selected for you comes from a noble family and is a model of a noble lady. Yet you were unsatisfied and insisted on choosing this Shen Zhaozhao from a humble background. She is simply not fit for the grand stage. How will she assist you in the future? How will she become your support? What else can she do besides being jealous and petty? When you have a concubine in the future, I'm afraid she'll make an even bigger scene. You chose her yourself, so you must handle it. If the household is not at peace, how can you achieve great things? Don't let your father down. Prince Qing has been handling his duties exceptionally well lately, and your father is very pleased. If you continue to act so recklessly, be careful not to lose your father's favor." Seeing that Shen Zhaozhao had no ability to manage the household, Prince Yang was deeply troubled. Following the empress's advice, he selected Liu Anan, the daughter of the Marquis of Jing'an, from among the noble ladies of the capital to be his concubine, and entrusted her with full responsibility for managing the affairs of the Prince Yang's household. Liu Anan was greatly favored by the empress and received increasing recognition, while Shen Zhaozhao spent her days lost in melancholy and sorrow. By the time she came to her senses, the Yang prince's household had clearly come to regard Liu Anan, the secondary consort, as the primary figure. And the day of my wedding with Song Lingfeng had arrived. Since Song Lingfeng was an orphan, he had no qualms about us continuing to live in the Pingxi prince's residence after our marriage. My father and mother were even more delighted with him, treating him with more affection than they would a son-in-law. Before the wedding ceremony, I saw an unexpected person. The Prince of Yang had actually rushed over from the capital. When he saw me, I had just put on my wedding dress. He looked at me wearing the phoenix crown and ceremonial robes, his eyes reddening. "If I hadn't acted on impulse back then, you should have been wearing this phoenix crown and ceremonial robes to marry me." I stood at a distance from him, with maids and guards standing nearby. I raised my eyes to look at him. "Prince of Yang, it is improper for me to see you according to etiquette. However, as an old friend, I came to see you once. There is no need to say these words. If you have come sincerely to congratulate, then go outside and have a cup of wedding wine." He took a step forward and whispered, "After I got married, I never saw Shen Zhaozhao again. I regret it, Shuyi. If I were willing to abandon her and make you my official consort, would you be willing to return to the capital with me? I can ask my father to issue an edict annulling your marriage to the cavalry general. I will compensate him. I regret it every day, Shuyi. Would you be willing to come back to me and give me another chance?" I took a step back. "Your Highness, please show some restraint. I am not willing. I am the daughter of the Prince of Pingxi. My every word and action represent the Prince of Pingxi's estate. Moreover, I share a deep bond with Song Lingfeng, and today I will become his wife. Please leave, Your Highness. You think I rely on my family background to pressure others. So you married Shen Zhaozhao, but after marrying her, you found her petty and unable to bring you honor, so you took a concubine. Your Highness, you don't truly wish to marry me. You're simply discontent because you couldn't have me. You are so fickle and indecisive, truly not a suitable match, and it's hard to like you. Today is my joyous occasion. I've said all I need to say. Please leave, Your Highness." After saying that, I turned to leave, but he grabbed my wrist fiercely. "You went to the capital just to marry me. Now that I've come in person, you're putting on such airs. Do you think your father, the Prince of Pingxi, can protect you for the rest of your life? if I ascend the throne one day, who could stop me from having you? That was a threat. I turned to look at him. Then, Your Highness, let's see if my father and husband can protect me for the rest of my life. The King of Yang left, his gaze dark and inscrutable, leaving a sense of unease in his wake. After the wedding, I relayed the King of Yang's words to my father and my husband. My father pondered for a moment, then looked at Song Lingfeng. What do you think? Song Lingfeng sneered coldly. A man like that, if he were to become emperor, would surely bring disaster. In that case, we must ensure he never ascends to that position. My father laughed heartily. Good, good, I knew I hadn't misjudged you. Then who else is more suitable besides him? I spoke up. Father, why not consider Prince Qing? Prince Qing, I smiled. Prince Qing is the legitimate son of the late empress and the emperor, which gives him the status of being the rightful heir. He is also the eldest son, which gives him the status of being the firstborn. He is both legitimate and the eldest. If he ascends the throne, wouldn't it be perfectly justified? Prince Yang merely holds the title of the legitimate son of the empress, yet he is currently unpopular in the court. In contrast, Prince Qing is a virtuous prince. When I was in the capital, I heard of his reputation, and many court officials speak highly of him. My father nodded. During my last conversation with Prince Qing, he discussed the military forces and deployments in the northwest. He is a man of intellect. Although he is not favored at the moment, he remains neither arrogant nor subservient, displaying great composure. He is someone capable of achieving great things. I do not know how my father managed it, but he quickly reached a consensus with Prince Qing. With my father's support in the court, Prince Qing soon began to stand out. Seeing the situation, some court officials started to change their stance and began supporting Prince Qing. Prince Yang was furious and cursed loudly in the Empress's palace. The Empress looked at him with disappointment. Fool, back then your mother had everything planned for you, but you shattered it all yourself, placing personal feelings above your future. Marrying the daughter of the Minister of Rights has not only failed to help your prospects but has instead brought turmoil to your household, dragging you down. That Shen Jiaojiao, if you don't like her, why not send her to Hugua Temple to practice Buddhism, copy sutras to calm your imperial grandmother's mind, and let the concubine manage the affairs of the prince's residence. Now, it's time to take another concubine to help you. Within less than 3 months of Liuanan entering the Yang prince's residence, she became pregnant. Shen Jiaojiao was green with envy, but there was nothing she could do, for the Yang prince never set foot in her room, let alone allowed her to conceive. She hadn't even finished grieving when she discovered that the Prince of Yang was about to take a second concubine. She felt as if the sky had fallen. One concubine was the legitimate daughter of a marquis's household, and the other was the legitimate daughter of a general's family. Both came from families of higher status than her own. After the new concubine entered the residence, because Liuanan was pregnant, the Prince of Yang spent 20 days out of each month with the new concubine, showing her immense favor. Within a month of entering the residence, the new concubine was diagnosed with pregnancy. The Empress was overjoyed and bestowed lavish rewards upon the residents. The courtyards of both concubines were filled with nourishing gifts, but Shen Jiaojiao received nothing. The Empress even had someone admonish Shen Jiaojiao. Upon hearing that the Prince of Yang intended to send her to Hugua Temple to copy scriptures, she tearfully pleaded, "Your Highness, I won't argue with the side consort anymore. Please don't send me to Hugua Temple." The Prince of Yang hardened his heart and said, "You should go to Hugua Temple to calm your mind. Once Her Majesty's anger subsides and the two side consorts' pregnancies stabilize, you may return." Shen Jiaojiao was sent to Hugua Temple to worship the Buddha. I had the people my father left in the capital pretend to casually mention while offering incense at the Guardian Temple that the Empress intended to promote the first concubine of the Yang Prince's mansion, who gives birth to a legitimate son, to the position of principal consort. And she was prepared to abolish Shen Jiaojiao's position as principal consort. Upon hearing the rumor, Shen Jiaojiao's maid was terrified and hurried to the meditation room to tell her. Shen Jiaojiao's eyes welled up with tears. I knew it wouldn't be so simple. Both concubines come from prestigious families. If either gives birth to a legitimate son, They could easily depose me from my position as principal consort. I absolutely cannot allow his legitimate son to be born. The Prince of Yang happened to be sent by the Emperor to the Jiangnan region to oversee disaster relief efforts, leaving only 2 consorts in the Prince of Yang's residence. Shen Zhaozhao returned to the Prince of Yang's residence from the Guardian Temple, abandoning her usual arrogance. She presented the peace talismans she had obtained from the temple to the 2 consorts, saying, "It has always been my fault in the past. Recently, while worshipping Buddha and copying sutras at the Guardian Temple, I finally came to a realization: your children are also my children, and they will call me mother. Why should I make things difficult for you? When your children are born, I will immediately ask Her Majesty the Empress to decide. Whichever of you gives birth to the legitimate heir will be established as the principal consort, even among commoners. There is the concept of equal wives, let alone in the royal family." The 2 consorts were overjoyed. The position of principal consort was an immense temptation. Everyone knew that the Prince of Yang was the most likely candidate to become the crown prince. Becoming his principal consort meant securing the future position of crown princess, and beyond that, they dared not even imagine. Shen Zhaozhao watched the 2 concubines leave, a smile curling at the corners of her lips. The principal consort, the rightful position in the Prince of Yang's residence, will always be mine, and there can never be a second. Within half a month, the Empress received devastating news in the palace. Both concubines in the Prince of Yang's residence had suffered miscarriages. With such a major incident occurring in the residence of the Empress's own son, she personally went to the Prince of Yang's residence. The 2 concubines were confronting each other with their attendants. Liu Anan, holding a sachet in her hand, wept. "The child in your womb was 2 or 3 months older than mine. Fearing that I would give birth to the legitimate heir first, you actually sewed musk into the sachet you gave me. How could I have ever considered you a sister?" Meanwhile, Wu Ying, the daughter of General Wu, refused to be outdone. "Do you think you're any better, adding herbs that cause miscarriage to my tea? My miscarriage was because I drank the soup you sent over," Liu Anan screamed. "That was the blessed water the princess brought back from the Guardian Temple. I drank it too. Why would I harm you?" The Empress finally seized the key point. "You all drank the blessed water that the princess brought back from the Guardian Temple." Immediately, a royal physician detected something from the remaining liquid in the bowl and knelt on the ground, kowtowing. "Your Majesty, this is indeed talisman water, but it has been mixed with safflower. Drinking half a bowl can cause a miscarriage in a pregnant woman, let alone the fact that both consorts have consumed an entire bowl." Liu Anan and Wu Ying stared at the physician in disbelief. "How is that possible?" The princess consort said this was talisman water given by the abbot of Hugua Temple, and that drinking it would ensure the birth of a son. The Empress slammed the table. "Bring the princess consort here." When Shen Zhaozhao was brought in, she looked completely composed. "Yes. I was the one who added the safflower. I cannot bear children, and you all want to. That is absolutely impossible. If His Highness does not touch me, I cannot bear children, and no one in Yangwang Manor will be allowed to have children either. I have arranged for all the concubines to drink the safflower soup. In this Yang Prince's mansion, no one but me can bear children anymore. Ha ha ha." Liu Anan fainted on the spot, while Wu Ying, being a fire-tempered daughter of a military family, directly grabbed the sword from the table and lunged at Shen Zhaozhao. Because a maid intervened, she only managed to slash Shen Zhaozhao's face, leaving a bloody gash that bled profusely. The Empress gave the order. "Shen Zhaozhao has harmed the Yang Prince's heirs. Lock her up in the imperial prison and await the Yang Prince's return for judgment." While the Prince of Yang was in Jiangnan under the pretext of disaster relief, he had long forgotten his official duties. From the day he arrived, corrupt officials embezzling relief funds had been serving him with beautiful women and fine delicacies. The melodious sounds of Jiangnan silk and bamboo filled his ears, and the enchanting beauties of the south captivated his heart, leaving him utterly lost in indulgence. Upon completing his mission and returning to the capital, the Prince of Yang reported to the Emperor, praising the officials in Jiangnan for their diligence and claiming that the disaster victims had been properly resettled. He even suggested that once the disaster had passed, they should be rewarded. The emperor reviewed the memorial submitted by Prince Qing, which detailed the number of disaster victims, the amount of grain distributed, the number of people who had starved to death, and the exact sum embezzled by corrupt officials. More importantly, the final page recorded that officials in Jiangnan had gifted the Prince of Yang a total of 50,000 taels of silver. Along with courtesans from Jiangnan and slender beauties from Yangzhou, all of whom the prince had brought back with him. At the end of the petition were the bloody handprints of the disaster victims from Jiangnan. The emperor, looking at the kneeling censor and Prince Qing, was so enraged that he felt a surge of anger in his heart. He threw the petition at Prince Yang's head and said, "As a prince, you have turned a blind eye to the suffering of the people, indulging only in pleasure. If the empire were to fall into your hands, the people would have no hope of survival from now on." All this evidence was gathered by my father, who sent people to assist Prince Qing, and my husband also dispatched men to help Prince Qing find the disaster victims one by one, recording their grievances and having them press their handprints. With such a thick stack of evidence laid before him, even if the emperor doted on this son, he could not allow him to continue in this manner. The Prince of Yang was demoted to a commandery prince, confined to his residence, and forbidden to leave without an imperial decree. Upon returning to his residence, he discovered that it had already been completely altered. Both of his unborn children were lost, and Shen Jiaojiao had been imprisoned. He went to see Shen Jiaojiao once, only to accuse her, "You poisonous woman, you killed my children, I will divorce you." When she saw the Prince of Yang, she neither pleaded innocence nor cried out, but only looked at him coldly. "I thought I had married a good man when I wed you, but I never imagined it would be the beginning of all my suffering. However, I'm not afraid anymore. Your concubine can no longer bear children. I killed them with my own hands. Your Highness, if I cannot have them, no one else can either." After saying this, she burst into laughter, black blood trickling from the corner of her mouth. "I know you will divorce me, but unfortunately, I am about to die. You won't have time. I will remain your principal consort until my death. If you remarry, it will only be as a second wife. Haha, I am the true princess of Yang." Shen Jiaojiao died, and the Prince of Yang was confined to his residence. As if deeply traumatized, he fell into a state of despair and never again attended court. The following spring, Prince Qing was established as the crown prince. By the end of the same year, the emperor abdicated, and Prince Qing ascended the throne. He had always been considerate of the people's sentiments and was a wise ruler. As for me, I no longer paid attention to news from the capital. I was pregnant and focused solely on being a mother. On the day of the delivery, Song Lingfeng was in the courtyard making a wooden horse. I called out softly to him, "Husband, our child can't wait to come out and meet us." I was in pain all night long. At daybreak, a cry pierced the darkness, and Song Lingfeng held me tightly. "Shuyi, you have given me a pair of dragon and phoenix twins, thank you." Looking at my husband beside me and the peacefully sleeping twins, I feel that this life is complete. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. On the day when Xie Chenzhong's cousin was in difficult labor, the old lady mobilized all the guards in the mansion, surrounding the side courtyard to prevent me, the legitimate wife, from causing trouble. Yet, until the baby's cry broke through the night sky, I had not set foot in that courtyard. The mother-in-law held the cousin's hand and sighed, saying, "Rong, don't be afraid. With me here, that Du Fu won't be able to harm you in the slightest." Xie Chenju, still in his armor, knelt by the birthing bed to wipe the sweat and blood from the cousin's forehead. I had my personal guard stationed at the mansion gate. If he dared to come with a sword, I would make him lay down his weapon and accept the money. Seeing that no one disturbed us all night, he loosened his grip on the sword hilt. He couldn't understand, he only wanted an heir. Why did I cry every day? Causing unrest in the household, listening to the cries of the infant in the wet nurse's arms. Her cold expression softened slightly, and Zhong thought to himself with a faint smile that if I were to bring a bowl of soup tomorrow to apologize, he would overlook the recent turmoil and even allow me to adopt this child as the legitimate heir. But he didn't know that at that very moment, A horse galloping 800 miles on the official road was carrying me and Uncle Lee toward the capital. The general's mansion was brightly lit on a summer night, with heart-wrenching screams echoing from the side courtyard. I stood under the corridor, watching the guards holding torches tightly surround the side courtyard, the clashing of scabbards piercing the quiet night. Lady Chunju returned with reddened eyes, her voice trembling. "The old madam has ordered that you are not to approach, not even half a step into the side courtyard, and not even hot water is allowed to be sent." I clenched the handkerchief in my hand, my nails almost digging into my palm. The screams from the side courtyard suddenly rose, followed by the panicked voice of the midwife. "It's not good, Miss Lin is hemorrhaging." My heart skipped a beat, and I instinctively took a step forward, only to be stopped by a guard's drawn sword. "The general has ordered that the madam is not to set foot in the side courtyard." I stood frozen in place when suddenly I heard Xie Chenzhou's low, cold voice from inside. "Go fetch the imperial physician. If anything happens to Rua, I'll have everyone buried with her." The anxiety and heartache in his voice stabbed at my heart, making it clench painfully. Chunju supported my swaying body, sobbing, "Madam, let's go back." I closed my eyes, turned around, and walked away. Behind me, the old madam's voice came clearly. "Rua, don't be afraid. With me here, Du Fu won't dare harm you in the slightest." Xie Chenzhou's voice followed closely, carrying a cold warning. "I've stationed my personal guards at the mansion gate. If he dares to come with his sword, I'll teach him how to wield it properly." I paused in my steps and suddenly laughed, the returning origin pill in my hand crushed to pieces. "So, in their eyes, I am this poisonous." My body swayed, and I leaned against the pillar to keep from falling. Lady Qingzhu hurriedly supported me, but I waved her off, forcing myself to walk back into the room. The woman in the mirror had a deathly pale face, with deep, dark circles under her eyes. I touched my own face. My fingertips were icy cold. There was a time when Xie Chenju loved to cup this face in his hands and say that my eyes were brighter than the stars. 3 years ago, he was still a young general who had just returned from the battlefield. An arrow had struck his chest, its tip poisoned, and the imperial physicians were at a loss. It was I, the descendant of the ancient medicine king, who saved his life. I remember the first words he spoke upon opening his eyes. "Has a fairy descended to the mortal realm?" I blushed crimson, but he held my hand and wouldn't let go. Later, he came to Medicine King Valley to see me every day, took me to see the lanterns of Chang'an, and made a vow by the moat. "I, Xie Chenju, will never betray you in this lifetime." When he said those words, the tenderness in his eyes almost melted me. How laughable it seems now. Just a year into our marriage, he brought in his widowed cousin, Lin Rong, a delicate beauty as graceful as a willow in the wind, who spoke softly and was prone to tears. Xie Chenju said she was alone and helpless, and asked me to treat her well. I treated her like a sister, but she climbed into my husband's bed. My fingers unconsciously brushed over my flat abdomen. There had once been a 5-month-old child there, already showing signs of being a boy. If he had lived, he would be babbling and calling for his mother by now. Last year, during the Lantern Festival, Xie Chenju reluctantly agreed to accompany me to see the lanterns. Lin Rong insisted on coming along, complaining of dizziness or foot pain the entire way, with Xie Chenju supporting her the whole time. Later, the crowd suddenly grew restless. Someone shouted that a horse had been startled, and chaos erupted. I will never forget that moment when Xie Chenju, without a moment's hesitation, abandoned me and tightly shielded Lin Rong in his arms. At 5 months pregnant, I was knocked down by the crowd, with countless feet trampling over me. When I woke up, the baby was already gone. The doctor said I was injured and would find it extremely difficult to conceive again. Xie Chenju knelt by the bed, weeping bitterly, begging for my forgiveness. Looking into his bloodshot eyes, I actually softened, until that rainy night, when I dragged my sick body to the study to bring him some soup, only to hear the nauseating sounds of panting inside. My dear cousin, that day was our child's first-month memorial. The incense before the spirit tablet hadn't even burned out, and his father was already seeking pleasure with another woman. Later, Lin Ruoer became pregnant, and Xiechenzhou's gaze toward me held not only guilt but also more vigilance. He guarded against me as if I were a venomous snake, fearing I would harm his beloved woman and their unborn child. Cheers came from outside the window, followed by the loud cry of a baby, "It's a boy!" Laughter faintly drifted in. I sat before the bronze mirror, looking at my own dull eyes in the reflection, and suddenly felt a strong urge to laugh at my own foolishness. At my own naivety. As I laughed, tears blurred my vision. On the day the child on the 20th floor turned 1 month old, the entire general's mansion was draped in red silk, even more bustling than my own wedding 3 years ago. I stood under the corridor, watching the servants hang lanterns, my fingers digging so hard into my palms that they nearly bled. From around the corner, I occasionally overheard the servants gossiping. "The general truly dotes on her. I heard she had 12 golden locks made for the baby alone." "Sure, keep it down. After all, the lady is of noble birth. So what, a hen that can't lay eggs?" I stood frozen in place until Qingzhu, her eyes red, tugged at my sleeve. At the banquet, dressed in my formal crimson matriarchal gown, I watched Xiechenzhou holding the child as he accepted congratulations. Lin Ru stood beside him in a pink dress, the picture of a harmonious family. "Sister," he called out sweetly, "Bao Bao is waiting for Auntie's gift." I took out the longevity lock from the brocade box, crafted from pure gold and engraved with the words "Long Life and 100 Years." Before I could speak, my mother-in-law snatched it away, weighed it in her hand, and sneered, "How stingy. Our Xie family's golden grandson deserves something so shabby." A few muffled laughs came from the guests. I stood frozen in place, the brocade box in my hand suddenly feeling as heavy as 1,000 pounds. "Oh, Bao Bao seems to prefer the jade pendant at sister's waist," Lin Ru suddenly exclaimed, pointing at my Yangji jade pendant. It was the only keepsake my mother had left me, something I had never taken off since her passing. I instinctively covered the pendant. "This is my mother's, it's just a piece of jade." Xiechenzhou cut me off, reaching out to untie the pendant. "If Bao Bao likes it, why not give it to him?" I took a step back but bumped into the maid behind me. Seizing the opportunity, Xiechenzhou yanked the pendant off, the cord leaving a red mark on the back of my neck. The entire hall fell silent, except for Lin Ru, who covered her mouth with a light laugh. "Chenju," my voice trembled, "that was my mother's." He had already turned and handed the pendant to Lin Ru, who pretended to be gentle as she tucked it into the baby's hand. "Look, Bao Bao, what a beautiful jade pendant." The child's chubby little hand couldn't hold it at all. The pendant clattered onto the marble floor, shattering into 3 pieces. The sound was piercingly clear. I knelt to pick up the fragments, but as soon as my fingers touched them, a booted foot stepped down on them. Xiechenzhou's voice came from above, "If it's broken, it's broken. I'll buy you a new one later." The shards dug into my palm, sharp and painful, but what hurt even more was the ache in my heart. As if something inside me had shattered completely, Lin Ru feigned a gasp. "Oh, Bao Bao didn't mean it. Sister won't hold it against a child, will she?" I slowly stood up, clutching the shard in my palm. Its sharp edge cut into my skin, and blood dripped from between my fingers onto the crimson skirt. "Blooming into dark, spreading flowers, of course not," I heard myself say, my voice eerily calm. "After all, she's just a child who doesn't know any better." Xiechenzhou's brows relaxed, seemingly satisfied with my understanding. He would never know that, just moments ago, he had personally killed the last person who loved him. Song Qingtang. 3. Back in the courtyard, I finally couldn't hold on any longer and spat a mouthful of blood onto a handkerchief. Qingzhu was so frightened she burst into tears. I waved my hand, signaling her to stay quiet. "Madame Zhong wants it." She trembled as she handed me the medicine bowl. I shook my head. "No need. No amount of medicine can heal the wounds in my heart." In the evening, Lin Ru came alone to my courtyard. She held a round fan in her hand, swaying it leisurely as she sauntered into my room, looking around as if inspecting her own territory. I tightened my grip on the handkerchief in my hand. "Get out." Lin Ru not only didn't leave but instead sat down across from me. She pulled an exquisite sachet from her sleeve and toyed with it. I recognized it at a glance. It was the one I had given to Xiechenzhou, embroidered with a pair of mandarin ducks. Brother Chenju said this sachet is old and asked me to embroider a new one for him. She deliberately waved the sachet in front of my eyes. Sister's craftsmanship is truly excellent, but it's a pity she's grown old and faded. I put down the handkerchief and looked directly into her eyes. What exactly do you want to say? Lin Ru suddenly leaned in close, the strong scent of her makeup making me dizzy. Sister, do you know, sometimes I pity you. Pity me. I almost laughed out loud. Yes, she blinked. For example, on the night of the Lantern Festival, my fingers dug sharply into my palm. The Lantern Festival, that was a nightmare I never wanted to recall. That night, when Brother Chenju was holding me, he was still worried that something might happen to you. He tilted his head, looking so innocent. But I said, Sister is blessed and lucky. She'll definitely be fine. And then he stopped worrying. Blood rushed to my head with a roar, and my vision went dark for a moment. That night, while I was lying in a pool of blood, struggling in agony, they were there. Oh, right. Lin Ruo suddenly lowered her voice, her eyes gleaming with malice. Do you know why that horse suddenly went mad? What are you saying? My voice sounded so unfamiliar, as if it wasn't my own. I said. She spoke word by word, as if afraid I wouldn't hear clearly. I planned to kill your child. How could I let you give birth to the Xie family's eldest son? Brother Chenju is mine. I decided to marry him when I was 10. What are you, to dare take my place? The world seemed to freeze in that moment. A buzzing filled my ears, and all I could see was Jian Lingrong's crimson lips moving. I heard something snap. Maybe it was my sanity. The next moment, I lunged forward, my hands gripping her slender neck tightly. Her eyes widened in terror, and the sachet in her hand fell to the ground. You killed my child. I heard my own horse roar. You killed him. Lin Ru struggled desperately, her nails scratching several bloody marks on my arms. But I felt no pain, only the pulse beating beneath my palms reminded me that with a little more force, I could avenge my child. Let go. Her face flushed red, her lips beginning to turn purple. Die. I tightened my grip. Pay for my child's life. Suddenly, a shadow flashed, and a searing pain exploded on the back of my hand. Instinctively, I loosened my grip, and Lingru immediately slipped away like an eel, collapsing to the ground, coughing violently. The furious shout of the venomous woman Xie Chenju came from the doorway. He strode forward, pushed me aside, and shielded Lingrong in his arms. You're insane. I fell to the ground, blood seeping from the whip marks on the back of my hand. But compared to the pain in my heart, this was nothing. He admitted it. I trembled as I pointed at Linglong. That night during the Lantern Festival, she schemed to kill our child. He deliberately let the horse trainer spout nonsense. Xie Chenju sharply interrupted Ruo. She wouldn't even step on an ant. How could she do such a thing? Song Qingtang, you're sick. Lin Ru timely began to sob, burying her face in Xie Chenju's chest. Brother Chenju, I'm so scared. Sister suddenly grabbed me and said she wanted to kill me. I'm not sick. I got up and grabbed the hem of Xie Chenju's robe. He admitted it himself. He said he tied firecrackers to the horse's tail to deliberately create chaos. Xie Chenju shoved me away, his gaze icy and terrifying. Enough. Ever since the miscarriage, you've been suspicious and paranoid. Now you're even fabricating such lies to slander her. If you don't believe me, I heard my own voice shatter into pieces. Xie Chenju, our child is dead, and you're protecting the murderer. I think you're the one who's delusional. Xie Chenju picked up the still sobbing Lin Rui and looked at me coldly. You need to rest. From today onward, you are not to step out of the courtyard without my permission. I will have the imperial physician come to examine your mind. He carried Ling Ruo to the door, glanced back at me, his eyes devoid of any warmth, as if looking at a stranger. Take away the lady's scissors and hairpins. He ordered the maidservant outside. Don't let her harm herself. The door slammed shut, the sound of the lock turning especially jarring. I knelt on the ground, looking at the bleeding whip marks on the back of my hand, and suddenly laughed. I groped around and picked up the dirted sachet on the floor, the embroidered mandarin duck pattern now filthy and ruined, just like our love. Late at night, Qingzhu sneaked in. Seeing the wounds on the back of my hand, her tears immediately fell. Madam, how could they treat you like this? Go get my rosewood box. Qingzhu brought the box, and I took out a dragon-patterned jade pendant from it. This was a token given to me by the emperor back when I first married into the family, promising that whenever and wherever, as long as I held this pendant, he would fulfill one promise. Madam, you're going to use it. I gripped the jade pendant tightly, my voice eerily calm. I'm going to write a letter to the emperor. Qingzhu's eyes widened. Madam, you're going to use that promise. But this jade pendant can only be used once. I know. I unfolded the letter paper, dipped the brush in ink, and it was precisely for this reason that I had endured until now. The letter was very simple, stating only that my fate with Xie Chenju had come to an end, requesting the emperor's permission for a divorce, and pleading with the emperor to avenge my deceased child. After finishing the letter, I sealed it and, together with the jade pendant, handed it to Qingzhu, instructing her to find a reliable person to deliver it to the capital with an urgent 800-li dispatch. I tightly grasped Qingzhu's hand, making it clear that this matter must not be known by anyone in the general's residence. Qingzhu nodded firmly, tucking the letter and jade pendant close to her body. Rest assured, madam, my cousin works at the courier station and will deliver it safely. After Qingzhu quietly left, I stood alone by the window, gazing at the wild plum tree. The night wind blew, rustling the leaves as if whispering, "My child, wait, mother will soon seek justice for you." On the 7th day after sending the letter, the lock on the courtyard gate was suddenly opened. Xie Chenju stood at the entrance, dressed in a dark brocade robe, his jade belt gleaming at his waist. He hadn't visited my courtyard in a long time, and standing there now. He seemed like a stranger. I didn't rise to greet him, merely looking at him coldly. What business does the general have? He frowned, seemingly unaccustomed to my indifferent demeanor. 3 days from now is grandmother's 60th birthday. The residence will host a celebration banquet. I continued to lower my head, embroidering. The sound of the needle piercing the brocade was unusually clear. "You are the mistress of the house," he said stiffly. "The banquet requires your presence to oversee the arrangements." I nearly laughed out loud. He had shown no mercy when bringing me into this family, yet now he came with sweet words when he needed me to uphold appearances. The needle accidentally pricked my finger. A drop of blood welled up, spreading like a red plum blossom on the plain white silk handkerchief. "Understood," I replied calmly, licking the blood from my fingertip. Xie Chenju seemed not to expect me to agree so readily. Pausing for a moment before saying, "I have already lifted your house arrest, but as for Roma and the child, General, rest assured," I cut her off. "I have no interest in your precious darling." His brows furrowed even tighter, as if he didn't recognize me, looking me up and down. Indeed, how could the gentle and considerate Song Qingtang of the past speak in such a tone? That Song Qingtang had already died alongside the child in Shong Yuanjie's pool of blood. "You've changed." He finally uttered these 3 words before turning and leaving. I watched his retreating figure, a cold smile curling at the corner of my mouth. It wasn't just me who had changed. Qingzhu hurried in, her little face flushed with excitement. "Madam, there's news from the capital. Cousin sent word that the letter has been safely delivered, and the reply says it will arrive within 7 days. Today was exactly the 7th day. I tightened my grip on the silk handkerchief in my hand, my knuckles turning white. On the day of the birthday banquet, the general's residence was decorated with lanterns and streamers, bustling with guests. I wore a deep crimson phoenix tail dress with a high, elegant bun, adorned with the golden phoenix hairpin Xie Chenju had given me years ago. The woman in the mirror was as beautiful as a painting, yet her eyes were icy cold. Xie Chenju kept staring at me, his gaze complex, but I pretended not to notice and turned to greet the guests. Midway through the banquet, I was arranging the order for serving the longevity peaches. Suddenly, a commotion arose from the front courtyard, and the steward rushed in, flustered. "General, the imperial envoy has arrived." The entire hall erupted in uproar. Xie Chenjong abruptly stood up, his wine cup clattering to the floor, spilling wine and soaking the hem of his robe. Why did the court suddenly send an imperial envoy? Before he could figure it out, a pair of brocade-clad guards had already cleared the way and entered. The leading imperial envoy, holding the bright yellow imperial edict, carried an extraordinary presence. Xie Chenju received the decree. All the guests in the hall knelt in unison. I walked toward the carriage at the door. A faint smile curling at the corner of my lips, the person I had been waiting for had finally arrived. Listening to the imperial envoy inside unfurling the edict, his voice booming, "By the mandate of heaven, the emperor decrees." Having learned that the marital bond between Song Qingtang and General Zhenghua Xie Chenju has been severed, with all affection and duty exhausted, they are hereby granted permission to separate. The carriage slowly made its way toward the city gate this time. It was truly coming to an end. Xie Chenju, may we never meet again in this lifetime. Xie Chenju stared fixedly at that scroll of the imperial edict, his heart sinking with every word spoken by the imperial envoy. Having learned that the marital bond between Song Qingtang and General Zhenghua Xie Chenju has been severed, with all affection and duty exhausted, they are hereby granted permission to separate. The child in Lin Rong's arms suddenly began to cry. The sound piercingly sharp in the deathly silent hall, yet Xie Chenju seemed frozen in place, even his breath coming to a halt. Upon investigation, the Shongyuan Festival lantern case was found to be a deliberate plot by the Lin family to harm the imperial envoy. Suddenly, the envoy clapped his hands, and two brocade-clad guards dragged in a coachman covered in blood and grime. The man confessed on the spot that he had been instructed by the Lin family to tie firecrackers to the horse's tail. The old woman fainted on the spot, and the guests gasped in shock. Lin Ru screamed and tried to hide behind Xie Chenju, but he shoved her away violently. "No, it can't be." Xie Chenju's voice trembled as he looked at the confession in the imperial envoy's hand, which bore the unmistakable seal of the Ministry of Justice. The imperial envoy sneered. "Does General Xie still need to see the physical evidence?" From his sleeve, he produced a blood-stained infant's swaddling cloth. This was found in a hidden compartment in Madame Lin's chamber, and on it is her own handwriting, except for Nai Zhong. Xie Chenju staggered backward, knocking over a small table. He recalled that day when my blooded hands clutched at the hem of her clothes, pleading in despair, and suddenly felt a wave of nausea churning in his stomach. Xie Chenju has failed to govern his household strictly. From this day forward, he is demoted to the rank of Zhaowu lieutenant. The imperial envoy swept his gaze over the chaotic Xie family and the Lin family. "Take Madame Lin to the Ministry of Justice immediately." "Qingtang," Xie Chenju suddenly interrupted, his crimson eyes sweeping across the hall. "Where is he?" The only answer was the distant sound of a carriage fading away outside the door. He rushed out like a madman, only to see the dust kicked up at the end of the road. Turning back, he grabbed the imperial envoy by the collar. "Where did he go, General Xie?" The envoy calmly pushed his hand away, straightening his collar with deliberate slowness. When Miss Song was about to be married, the emperor made her a promise. Suddenly lowering his voice, he asked, "Do you know why it wasn't used until today?" Xie Chenju stood frozen in place, his face pale. As the envoy turned to leave, he glanced at Lingru, who was wailing, and whispered softly, mistaking a piece of wood for a pearl. A sudden downpour poured from the sky. Xie Chenju knelt in the courtyard. "The one I often looked at is gone too." He dug out a blood-stained doll, the first gift he had ever given her. On the back, the words "Long Life and Prosperity" were clumsily embroidered, and a few strands of baby hair were still tangled around its feet, soaked to the bone. She clutched the blood-stained doll in her hand, the envoy's words echoing in her ears, mistaking a piece of wood for a pearl. Lin Ru's cries as she was taken away still echoed in the air. She said she loved him, that she was just too afraid of losing him. But all Xie Chenju could think of was the day I miscarried. Curled up in a pool of blood, he suddenly remembered the day he carried Lingru away, not even glancing back at the hall. His voice hoarse, he staggered to his feet and rushed into my courtyard. The room was empty, the cosmetics on the dressing table neatly arranged. The bedding on the bed meticulously folded. It was as if I had just stepped out for a walk and would return at any moment, but he knew I would never come back. Frantically, he rummaged through the cabinets and drawers, finally finding a letter under the pillow. It bore only a few words, "Xie Chenju. We shall never meet again in this lifetime." His fingers trembling, he crumpled the letter in his palm and stormed out of the mansion. Bima, he was determined to pursue. Even if it meant chasing to the ends of the earth, he would find me and bring me back. But as soon as he stepped out of the mansion gate, a team of imperial guards blocked his way, led by Commander Xie. The officer coldly declared, "By the Emperor's order, you are not to leave the capital." Xie Chenzhou's eyes turned bloodshot. "Step aside. The imperial decree is below. If you defy it, it will be a capital offense." He stood frozen in place. Finally realizing that the Emperor was protecting me, protecting Song Qingtang, who had once saved her life, while he himself didn't even have the right to chase after me. 6. The rainy season in Nanlin arrived abruptly. As I bent over to organize the medicine cabinet, the bamboo curtain at the entrance was suddenly pushed aside by a figure in moon-white robes. The person rushed into the clinic carrying a child covered in blood, their clothes stained with mud. Yet their hair and official cap remained perfectly neat. A clear, gentle voice mixed with the sound of rain drifted over. When I looked up, I met a pair of frosty, snow-like eyes, reminiscent of inkstones soaked in ancient cold springs, cool yet warm. A half-broken branch was embedded in the child's chest, and their breathing was so faint that the pulse was almost undetectable. I quickly spread out my acupuncture kit and prepared to boil hemp powder. But the person suddenly pressed down on my wrist. "He is the son of a hunter and is allergic to aconite." At the moment our fingertips touched, I caught a faint scent of agarwood from their sleeve. This incense, worth its weight in gold, could be afforded by no more than a handful of people in all of Nanling. "Shenyang." He released my hand and bowed. "From the Imperial Hospital." "Shenyang." The silver needle glinted coldly under the candlelight. I deliberately aimed it at the child's baihui point right in front of him, and sure enough, I saw his brow furrow slightly. Yet he did not speak up to stop me, a sign that he knew what he was doing. By the third watch, the rain had ceased, and the child was finally out of danger. Shenyanli was brewing medicine under the corridor, his moon-white robe stained with varying shades of steam, when I stepped out. He handed me a cup of medicinal tea. Physician Song's acupuncture technique is reminiscent of an ancient method. The tea was unexpectedly infused with spikenard, precisely the blend I favored most. "Young Master Shen seems quite knowledgeable about women's tea preferences," I remarked pointedly, glancing at the gilded sachet at his waist, a style clearly meant for women of high status. Instead of taking offense, he smiled, untied the sachet, and poured out the herbs. "Spikenard calms the nerves, rose invigorates the blood, and with the addition of borneol, it treats menstrual irregularities." The words slipped out before I could stop myself, and I immediately corrected my posture. This formula was my grandfather's secret, never to be shared. The moonlight after the rain spilled over his eyelashes, casting swaying shadows on the bluestone pavement. 12 years ago, during an avalanche in Yarawang Valley, a little girl with a broken leg led the Imperial Hospital's rescue team into the valley. The memory suddenly came alive. I was 14 that year. After crawling through the snow for half a day, I was finally carried out on the back of a youth carrying a medicine box. The scent of agarwood from his medicine box gradually merged with the fragrance lingering at my nostrils now. "So it was you." I traced the rim of the teacup. "Back then, you promised to gift me the ancient scroll of the *Shenong Benkao Jing*. Today, I have come specifically to fulfill that promise." He retrieved a yellowed book from his sleeve, its pages inscribed with the words, "To my little savior." The ink has already blurred the years. Shenyang set up a pharmacy in the Swayan Hall Pavilion. Every morning when she opens the window, she can always be seen standing on a wooden ladder, tidying the corners of her eyes. Wind chimes and morning light pass through the glass bells, casting colorful spots on his increasingly white, long mountain, much like the red after the valley rain in Yarawang Valley. Dr. Song had seen enough, and one day he suddenly turned around, still clutching a handful of emerald green herbs, freshly picked stringer pearls, meant for the withered orchid on your windowsill. It was only then that I noticed a celadon pot placed on the edge of the window frame. Where the dying orchid had been replaced with fresh soil at some point. Young Master Shen pays such close attention to the furnishings for women, but only for a certain little girl who treats detox pills like candy. He suddenly leaped down from the wooden ladder, meeting my gaze through the window frame. "Back then, You said you wanted to open the best medical clinic in the world. Now it seems you've achieved your wish. The wind brushed past the green satin ribbon tied in his hair. Sweeping over the clothes and comb I had laid out on the shore, the yellowed pages of the book rustled as they flipped back to the title page, revealing a faded candy wrapper tucked inside, the pine nut candy he secretly slipped to me when I left the snowy mountains back then. Suddenly, a man came running from the backyard, holding a crooked wooden carving. Brother Shen taught me to carve a little rabbit for you. Sister, thank you for saving a man. Shenyang smiled and ruffled her hair. Then looked up at me. She's an orphan. Dr. Song, would you be interested in taking on a little apprentice? Sure, I nodded with a smile. Shenyang asked. That day, an unexpected patient arrived at the clinic. I was grinding medicine with my head down when I suddenly heard a commotion outside. Dr. Song, come quickly. An apprentice rushed in. Panicked, a general is injured and has lost a lot of blood. My hand holding the medicine grinder paused, but I didn't look up. Let Dr. Shen handle it, but that general specifically asked for you. I raised my eyes and looked through the half-open door at the familiar figure leaning against the doorframe. His black battle robe was soaked with blood, and Xie Chenzhou's pale face wore a smile, but his gaze was fixed directly on me. Qingtang, he called weakly. I turned sharply, and the medicine grinder in my hand clattered loudly against the table. I said let Dr. Shen handle it. Shenyang walked out from the inner room, glanced at me, then looked toward the door and sighed softly. I'll take care of it. Xie Chenju suddenly changed his expression, pushing away the apprentice who was about to help him. No need. He staggered forward 2 steps, his hand gripping the doorframe, his knuckles turning white from the force. I only want Jiang Qingtang. Shenyang stood calmly between us. General Xie, if your wound isn't treated promptly, it could be life-threatening. Xie Chenju sneered, his gaze shifting between me and Shenyang. Dr. Shen, instead of attending to your duties, you're here. Could it be? He curled his lips into a mocking smile. You like her? The room fell into a terrifying silence. I could hear my own heartbeat, as if it were about to burst out of my chest. Shenyang remained silent for a moment before admitting calmly, yes. That word felt like a blunt knife stabbing straight into my heart. I stood frozen in place, not even realizing when I had set down the medicine grinder. Xie Chenzhou's face instantly turned deathly pale, and a flicker of something I couldn't decipher flashed in his eyes. Almost instinctively, I took a step forward and grasped Shenyang's hand. Xie Chenzhou's pupils contracted sharply. He stared at our joined hands, his Adam's apple bobbing a few times, but in the end, he said nothing. He turned and staggered away, leaving a trail of bloody footprints in the snow. It wasn't until his figure disappeared around the street corner that I snapped out of my daze and let go of Shenyang's hand. I'm sorry, I whispered softly. I just used you. Shenyang, however, gently shook her head, her gaze tender yet firm. What I said earlier wasn't to anger him. I meant it seriously. I was stunned, unsure how to respond. Shenyang had always been gentle and refined, never so straightforward about her feelings. Flustered, I turned to tidy the medicinal herbs but ended up knocking over an entire box of Angelica. Shenyang crouched down to help me pick them up, whispering softly, you don't have to answer me now. Outside the window, the snow began to fall even heavier. A few days later, Xie Chenju appeared again. This time, he wasn't injured, but he knelt motionless in the snow outside the clinic's entrance. Miss, the general has been kneeling for 2 hours already. Qingzhu reported anxiously. Peering through the window crack, I saw Xie Chenju wearing only a thin undergarment, snowflakes settling on his shoulders and a light layer already dusting his hair. His lips were purple from the cold, yet he still held his back straight, his gaze stubbornly fixed on the clinic's door. Don't pay him any mind. I hardened my heart and turned to check the medicine cabinet. Shenyang stood nearby, hesitating to speak. I deliberately raised my voice. Dr. Shen, are you free tonight? I heard a new restaurant has opened in the south of the city. Shenyang caught on and replied, of course I'm free. It would be my honor. Our voices must have carried outside, because I saw Xie Chenzhou's figure sway slightly, but he quickly steadied himself and knelt even straighter. As evening fell, Shenyang and I walked out of the clinic side by side. Xie Chenju was still kneeling there, the snow already covering her knees, as we passed by. He suddenly reached out and grabbed the hem of my skirt. Qingtang, his voice was hoarse beyond recognition. Please don't ignore me. I stopped but did not turn around. General Xie, what is the meaning of this? A dignified northern garrison general kneeling at the door of a mere seamstress. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at? I regret it so much. I shouldn't have doubted you. His fingers were red from the cold, yet he clung tightly to the corner of my clothes. I know you hate me. But I beg you to give me a chance to atone. I abruptly pulled back the hem of my skirt and walked forward without looking back. Shenyang silently followed, whispering at the corner, if you feel sorry for him, you don't have to be like this. I don't feel sorry for him. I cut him off, though my voice trembled slightly. He deserves it. That night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep, my mind filled with the image of Xie Chenju kneeling in the snow. If she hadn't brought Ling Ruo back to the mansion, how could our child have? I bit down on the corner of the quilt until I tasted blood before letting go. The next morning, Xie Chenju was already gone, leaving only 2 deep footprints in the snow, just as I thought he had finally given up. A sudden plague broke out in Nanlin, and patients flooded in like a tide. Shenyang and I were so busy we barely had time to touch the ground. 9 is the meaning, after examining several patients. Shun Yancha looked grave, needing snow lingji from the cliff as a medicinal guide. I was about to speak when I suddenly heard a commotion outside the door. Several soldiers rushed in carrying a stretcher, on which lay a man covered in blood, yet clutching a snow-white lingji tightly in his hand. It was General Xie Chenju, who had fallen from the cliff while gathering herbs. The soldier said anxiously, before he lost consciousness. He insisted it must be handed to Dr. Song personally. I stood frozen in place, watching the once arrogant man lying there on the brink of death, still fiercely protecting the life-saving herb in his hand. Shenyang quickly began the examination. 3 broken ribs, a fractured right leg, and internal bleeding. He looked up at me and said softly, Lingji. Mechanically, I stepped forward and took the blood-stained snow lingji. It was then that Xie Chenju opened his eyes, his pale lips trembling as he whispered, Qingtang, the herb, please. Look at me. My fingers trembled uncontrollably. Shenyang coughed lightly and said, save him first. After 3 days and nights of treatment, the plague was finally brought under control, but Xie Chenju contracted the plague due to wound infection and overexertion. I stayed by his bedside, watching him burn with fever, his mouth constantly murmuring, Qingtang, the child, I'm sorry. When he finally woke up after the fever subsided, the first thing he saw was me. A glimmer of hope instantly lit up in his eyes. Have you forgiven me? I put away the silver needles, expressionless. General Xie, if you must die, die on the battlefield. Don't cause me trouble. The light in his eyes quickly dimmed, but he forced a weak smile. All right, I'll listen to you. At that very moment, the urgent alarm horn from the border suddenly sounded. The northern enemies, taking advantage of the plague, launched a massive invasion and had already reached the city walls. Throwing the city into chaos, Shenyang and I were busy evacuating the patients, but Xie Chenju, ignoring his injuries, insisted on going to the city wall to oversee the battle. Are you insane? I couldn't help but stop him. You can't even hold a sword steady right now. He gently pushed my hand away. Defending the city is a general's duty. After a pause, he added, don't worry, I won't die, at least not in front of you. My heart trembled, but before I could say anything, he had already donned his armor and left. The situation on the battlefield took a sudden turn for the worse. The northern enemies, somehow learning of my relationship with Xie Chenju, took advantage of the chaos to kidnap me. They hung me outside the city wall, threatening Xie Chenju to surrender. The cold wind pierced to the bone, and the rough ropes dug into my wrists. I looked down at the dozens of feet below me, the wild laughter of the northern enemy general ringing in my ears. General Xie, look who this is. Is it worth it to ruin the country for a single wealthy man? Why not let him accompany the child? These words stabbed into my heart like a knife. For 3 years, I had never mentioned the child in front of outsiders. How did they know? On the city wall, Xie Chenju's face turned ashen. He raised his hand, signaling the soldiers to stop shooting arrows, and walked alone to the edge of the wall. "Let him go." His voice was not loud, but it instantly silenced the chaotic battlefield. The northern enemy general sneered, "General Xie is indeed deeply devoted. Then please come out of the city alone and lay down your weapons." I shook my head desperately. "Xie Chenju, don't." But he had already removed his sword and walked down the city wall alone. The northern enemies swarmed over, subduing him, and only then did they pull me back from outside the wall, just as they were about to untie the ropes on my hands. A cold arrow suddenly shot over, accurately cutting the ropes. My body sank, and I began to fall outside the city wall. At the critical moment, Xie Chenju, with strength from who knows where, broke free from his restraints, rushed to the edge of the wall, and grabbed my wrist. "Hold on tight." He gritted his teeth. His other hand clung desperately to the edge of the wall. I looked up at him and saw that his arm was twisted and deformed from the excessive force. Old injuries had not yet healed, and now new ones were added. His bones were likely broken. The enemies reacted, raising their swords to strike his back. Xie Chenju let out a muffled groan, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth, but his grip on my hand did not waver in the slightest. Beneath the city wall flowed a turbulent moat, with a piece of driftwood floating in the water. Xie Chenju and I, unable to bear the weight, fell into the moat. Suddenly, Xie Chenju gave me a faint smile and said, "Qingtang, you've hated me for so long, now it's my turn to hurt." With that, he mustered all his strength to push me toward the driftwood, while he himself fell backward due to the reaction force and was swallowed by the rushing river. "Xie Chenju." I screamed his name with a heart-wrenching cry, but could only watch helplessly as he disappeared beneath the water's surface. I landed on the driftwood, and before losing consciousness, the last image I saw was the river turning red. Xie Chenju's body was found 3 days later downstream. While sorting through his belongings, a close aide handed me an iron box, saying the general had carried it with him for many years. Inside the box was a stack of yellowed papers, all letters he had written to me over the years but never sent. The earliest one was dated the 7th day after my miscarriage. "Qingtang, today was our child's 7th day memorial. I saw you crying all day, treating me differently than before. The child is gone, and I am heartbroken too. I drank a few too many cups, and when I woke up, I don't know why my cousin was by my side. I am ashamed before you." The most recent letter had only a few words. "Qingtang, if I don't return from this journey, please ask Dr. Shen to take care of you. He treats you sincerely and is more deserving than I am." I pressed the letter to my chest, but not a single tear fell. It turns out the deepest sorrow is silent. Shen Yang stood outside the door and asked softly, "Do you regret it?" I shook my head. "Xie Chenju and I are simply even now." Shen Yang looked at me deeply and said nothing more. From then on, he never spoke of matters of the heart again, but silently accompanied me in running the clinic and adopting war orphans. The years flowed by like water. When I turned 50, while organizing medicinal herbs, I discovered a hand-drawn herbal guide. The notes were in Shen Yang's handwriting, with each page meticulously detailing the properties and effects of the herbs. On the last page was a piece of angelica, with a note beside it, "Angelica that does not return is still Angelica." I looked out the window, where Shen Yang was teaching the children in the courtyard about medicinal herbs. His hair was as white as snow, and sunlight filtered through the leaves of the old locust tree, casting dappled shadows on him. It turns out that some people in this world are destined to be gentler than love, yet deeper in affection, just like Angelica, neither strong nor intense, but capable of slowly seeping into every crack in the long years. Shen Yang walked on a spring morning, serene as if asleep. While sorting through his belongings, I found a stack of letters under his pillow, each beginning with the words Qingtang, yet never sent. I buried them together with Xie Chenju's remains in the back mountain, where one could overlook the entire Nanling city. The tombstone was simple, inscribed only with the words "bosom friend." I lived to a very old age. In my final moments, I vaguely saw 2 familiar figures standing at the foot of the bed, one in military attire, the other in a blue robe holding a scroll. They exchanged a smile and simultaneously reached out their hands to me. Outside the window, an old plum tree, having endured the frost, finally bloomed with its first flower of the year. Story 2. My husband, the prince of a different surname, made me his principal consort. Yet he spent every night in the side consort's chamber. My child, though raised by my side, wished for another mother. I finally gave up hope, with a dose of feigned death medicine. I granted them their wish. Jin Yaro said, starting tomorrow, Yuna will live in Pingyang Pavilion, under Ye's care. I clenched my fists, lowered my head, and complied with the prince's arrangements. Xue Tingxing was astonished. You mean you agree? Everyone thought I wouldn't agree, including myself. How ironic, I am his consort, his wife who has shared hardships with him, yet he wants to give my flesh and blood, whom I cherish as my life, to his side consort. All because his side consort, Li Ningyan, likes Yang's pure and gentle nature. She never competes with you for anything, she just wants the child. He even drank the 4 extremes soup for the sake of the heir. What more do you want? I know you can't bear to part with the child, but we will have more in the future. We can still have many more children. He must have forgotten that when I was pregnant with Xue Jiyuan, he was leading troops to attack Nanjing, due to insufficient supplies. I traveled extensively while heavily pregnant to gather provisions. During labor, I endured 2 days and nights of pain in the military camp. After giving birth to a son, we faced constant upheaval, and the imperial physician had long asserted that future offspring would be difficult. Are you sure, Xue Tingshan, that you don't believe it? I originally relied on my father for survival, but he died on the battlefield to ensure his early victory. The title of consort was earned through 8 years of unwavering support, and the only child by my side. I have already instructed Chun Dao to pack Yuana's belongings, and I believe they have already been delivered to Tingyang Pavilion. Xue Tingxing suddenly fell silent, his gaze complex as he looked at me for a long moment. Do not learn from the scheming ways of those in the capital, playing tricks and using underhanded methods, he warned, his face darkening as he turned and left. She truly overestimates me, as the idle gossip among the wealthy goes. I, a powerless orphan girl, would never have even touched the threshold of the capital in this lifetime if not for the good fortune of my ancestors' graves and my marriage to the brave and skilled prince of a different surname. How could I possibly compare to the noble ladies of the capital? I sat down in front of the dressing mirror, pulled open the curtain, took out a small porcelain bottle, poured out a pill, and swallowed it without hesitation. I only intend to fulfill their wishes. When I was born, my parents hoped I would be well-read and refined, so they named me Zhong Jinyao, not wanting me to follow in my father's footsteps as a martial artist with nothing but brute strength. However, from a young age, I had no interest in reading or writing, preferring instead to wield swords and spears. In the neighborhood, I was the leader among the children. Even brother Ting, who was 2 years older than me, was not as tall or as skilled as I was, and he always enjoyed playing with me. Zhong Jinyao, you have strength, and I have brains. Together, we are invincible. Even when the world fell into chaos before our wedding and I wanted to postpone the marriage, she still said, Zhong Jinyao, you have strength. And I have brains. What are you afraid of marrying me for? I wasn't afraid of marrying her. I was afraid of becoming her burden. The monks at the temple once declared that she was destined for wealth and nobility, certain to achieve great deeds. Fortunately, my martial skills proved useful. I could rescue her from enemy ambushes, lead soldiers through mountains and rivers to gather provisions, and safely deliver them through enemy lines. I could even accompany Yuana to the battlefield during military campaigns and take care of her daily needs during peacetime. At that time, I was immensely proud. My husband truly had the spirit of a hero, and I was not afraid of being the princess consort in the palace. How foolish I was back then. When I followed my husband, her close associates all respectfully called me sister-in-law. Sister-in-law, the food you make is truly delicious, sister-in-law. The shoes you made are so practical. I single-handedly brought back my trapped husband. That day, the soldiers knelt before me, their eyes red and their voices shaking the heavens. Sister-in-law, we were too late. After entering the palace, no one called me sister-in-law anymore. The leading eunuch bowed to me and addressed me as princess consort. For a moment, the scene fell into an awkward silence. and all kinds of glances swept over me. I was never particularly clever. But I suddenly understood that the capital was full of noble people, and even the palace maids had fair skin, rosy lips, and delicate, charming appearances. Unconsciously, I lowered my head. After 8 years of hardship and wandering, my face had been darkened by the scorching sun, and my hands were covered in layers of calluses, likely more than those of the lowliest servant in the palace. Xue Tingshan only took in a concubine, the daughter of Minister Li Ningyan. Before Li Ningyan entered the mansion, Xue Tingshan held my hand and gently explained to me, "Yao Yao, I must marry the daughter of Minister Li to win over the Li family, a powerful court official deeply rooted in the capital. Being able to secure your position as the principal consort is already the result of much negotiation. In my heart, you are my only wife. Do you understand?" I neither nodded nor shook my head, only asking him, "Is the Li family's daughter beautiful?" Xue Tingshan smiled and tapped my forehead, saying, "Not as beautiful as my Yao Yao." He lied to me. Li Ningyan had skin as fair as jade and ice, and even her way of walking was something I could never imitate. She was also a few years younger than me. Whenever things didn't go her way, she would look at Xue Tingshan with tearful, resentful eyes. At first, he found it hard to handle, but later, she spent more and more days in the Tingyang pavilion. Eventually, even when he came to my room, he would let her call him away. One night, I saw Li Ningyan playing the zither under the moonlight, while Xue Tingshan leaned nearby, drinking. His eyes were filled with the beauty under the moonlight. If it were only this, I wouldn't have wanted to leave, nor would I have considered the fake death medicine in the porcelain vase. I wouldn't use it unless absolutely necessary. Who knew if it was real or fake, or if there would be side effects, or if I would never wake up again. No matter how Xue Tingshan changed, there was still Yuana in this mansion, the child I carried for 10 months and raised with all my heart. While the entire capital laughed at my vulgarity, when he was young, he would refute them one by one with his childish voice. He loved curling up in my arms, calling me mother. "I love you the most," and then planting a wet kiss on my cheek. When did things start to change? Probably from the time he entered the Royal Academy. I couldn't read many characters and couldn't accompany him in his studies or practice writing, so he often went to the Tingyang pavilion to find his father. One year, on his birthday, Li Ningyan gave him an embroidered crossbow, crafted especially for him by a disciple of her family. It was exquisite and unparalleled in the world, the only one of its kind. From then on, he often spoke of Aunt Li. I wasn't jealous that Yuana grew close to Li Ningyan, as the heir of the mansion. He would inevitably have to interact with the Li family in the future. Only once, he ran too fast and forgot his ball gown. I chased after him with it but couldn't catch up. As he rushed happily into the Tingyang pavilion, he collided with Li Ningyan and fell into her arms. I remembered the 2 days and nights I spent giving birth to him in the military camp, with no maids or midwives. I endured the contractions, biting on a cloth strip, screaming until I was hoarse. When I finally gave birth to him, I was covered in blood, my mouth full of blood. I cried, thinking, blood is thicker than water. Why should I argue with a 5-year-old child? It wasn't until Li Ningyan proposed to take the child to Tingyang Pavilion under the name of his concubine. "My lord, I know you cherish the child." "Father, cherish the child, the Li family. I love you so much. How could I bear to put you in a difficult position? I genuinely love you. And as long as you give Yuana to me, I will never have another child in this lifetime." On that stormy night with thunder and lightning, Li Ningyan drank a bowl of orange soup in front of me and Xue Tingshan. "My lady, if you truly love Yang, give her to me. I can give him the entire Li family." "What can you give him?" She clutched her stomach, crying heart-wrenchingly. "But I couldn't bear it. It's just a child, given to Tsifei, also Zhengfei, Zhong Jinyao." "What exactly are you trying to achieve?" Xue Tingshan supported Li Ningyan with heartache, speaking urgently and sternly. I looked at Li Ningyan, clutching her stomach in pain. Was I wrong? Is it wrong to want to keep my own child? At that moment, Yuna rushed in and pushed me hard. "You don't love me at all. You're not my mother, you have nothing, yet you still cling to me. Why didn't you die sooner?" A deafening clap of thunder roared. My father sat on the ground. Watching the 3 of them huddled together, I finally realized I was wrong, terribly wrong. They are the real family. I have taken their place, their child. I should have disappeared long ago. On the third day after taking the medicine, I, who had always been in good health, began to cough up blood. A group of imperial physicians gathered at Tingyang Pavilion to treat Died.He, who had taken the contraceptive medicine, but no one noticed my abnormality. On the fifth day, Xue Jiyuan returned once. Seeing me lying on the couch, he didn't come over, only stammering, "Mother, don't blame me, you will have other children in the future, but concubine mother only has me." After saying that, he took her embroidery and ran off. I smiled bitterly and coughed, not wanting to be discovered by the maids, so I swallowed the blood I had coughed up. At night, Xue Tingchen also came. He seemed to want to comfort me and actually took off his clothes. I pushed him away with all my strength, coughing repeatedly. Where did the smell of blood come from? He couldn't see clearly under each lamp. I steadied my breath, and the more I came, the more Xue Tingsheng hesitated, but he didn't leave. Instead, he came to hold me. Died.He was weak and probably didn't want to smell my scent on the prince. Xue Tingchen finally moved a little further away from me but still held my hand. Gazing into the distance, "No matter what, Yuna is your child, forever your son." I remained silent. He then said, "I'll take you out of the mansion to play at the beginning of next month. I want to return to Peach Blossom Village." I said, "All right, when His Highness has time, I want to return to Peach Blossom Village." Xue Tingsheng probably frowned. "After the formalities are completed tomorrow, I'll give you the smoke." "All right." I withdrew my hand. Xue Tingshan still wanted to hold it from outside. A eunuch came to report to the prince, "The side consort is crying and asking for you to go over." "Go ahead." I tucked in my blanket. Xue Tingsheng looked at me for a while without moving. "Your Highness, the side consort's people outside are urging." Xue Tingchen scolded and got up to dress. I turned to the side and didn't open my eyes until I heard footsteps. Xue Tingsheng was no longer the short and stout man from back then. Now, he was tall and slender, but as I watched his figure grow smaller and smaller, I couldn't help but wonder why he suddenly seemed like that short, chubby boy from the past. "Zhong Jinyao, you have strength, and I have brains. If you play with me, we'll be invincible together." "Zhong Jinyao, you have strength, and I have brains. What are you afraid of if you marry me?" "Zhong Jinyao, you have strength, and I won't stop." "Brother, I no longer have any strength left." I let out a loud cry and vomited large mouthfuls of blood. People whispered among themselves, "The crown prince is to be placed under the consort's name, yet the princess consort is still alive." The maidservant's face is full of envy. The prince truly dotes on the consort. Originally, the transfer was just a matter of the imperial household department moving a pen, but that day, Died.He coquettishly nestled in the prince's arms and pleaded, "At the very least, let Yuna offer me a cup of tea in front of everyone. Otherwise, it would seem as though I were stealing his child from you without any justification." Xue Tingsheng agreed without a second thought. Thus, early that morning, Pingyang Pavilion was bustling with activity. The prince, the crown prince, Died.He, and even Minister Li were all present. Xu Jiyuan had long been impatient. Lady Li had already told him that by becoming her child, he would gain a maternal grandfather, a maternal grandmother, and several uncles who could often take him out of the palace. But as the hour approached, Wang Fei still hadn't appeared. She must have regretted it. Xue Jiyuan kicked the tea table in front of him in displeasure, nearly hurting his foot. Li Ningyan lifted him onto her lap and looked toward the upper seat. Prince Xue Tingsheng, with a grim expression, sent someone to fetch the princess consort. A eunuch immediately left. "I knew he was just fooling me," she thought. Li Ningyan's eyes reddened. How could he bear to part with Jiyuan? Why must he be present? Xue Jiyuan complained, "As long as father and mother are here, that's enough. It's not like I'm offering tea to him." Minister Li spoke up. "Her Highness the Princess Consort is Your Highness's birth mother. Your Highness should show her respect." Xue Jiyuan lowered his head and muttered, "It's just because I didn't coax her yesterday. I'll make it up to her another day." Another cup of tea's worth of time passed, and still, the princess consort had not arrived. Xue Tingsheng set down his teacup with a glare, about to lose his temper. When the servant who had just left hurried back in, kneeling in panic as soon as he entered the hall, "Your Highness, the princess consort has passed away." In truth, I wasn't sure if that pill could really allow me to feign death and escape. When I was 13, I met a young monk. "Young lady, you bear the appearance of one destined to wait for her husband. Please, you must accept this humble monk's gift." He gave me a book, telling me to give it to my husband in the future. Then he handed me a small porcelain vial. After explaining its use, he sighed, "Such heavenly fortune, yet not truly one's own, how pitiable." He shook his head and left. I simply thought he was a wandering monk. It wasn't until Xue Tingsheng told me that it was a military strategy book, and that he had relied on it to win one difficult battle after another. The fake death pill the young monk gave me might truly be that miraculous. I took the pill as he had instructed years ago and sent a letter outside the mansion to the temple he mentioned. That night, after Xue Tingsheng left, I used the blood I had coughed up to write a letter in blood. "My husband, I wish to return to Peach Blossom Village. Bury me in the peach blossom forest." I wasn't sure if he would follow my wishes. When I regained consciousness, I caught the faint scent of peach blossoms. "Your Highness." I even heard voices. "Your Highness, Her Highness has already passed. Please let her go in peace." "Yao," someone was knocking on the coffin. "Yao Yao, you were so ill. Why didn't you tell me?" "Yao Yao, you deceived me, didn't you? Get up. I order you to get up." The slapping sound suddenly grew louder. Xue Tingsheng's voice was hoarse and strained. "Someone, open the coffin for me." My heart tightened. The monk had said I would feign death for 10 days. I must be in Peach Blossom Village now, but since it was only a feigned death, if the coffin were opened, my body would show no signs of decay, and there would be no master to guide the ritual. I would surely be exposed. Then, my father's voice came again, followed by a child's crying. "Didn't you say mother was just sleeping? Why are they burying her in the ground? They say she's dead, gone forever. Is that true?" My father was Xue Jiyuan. A clamor of voices followed, advising against opening the coffin as it was a great taboo, some crying out that it would disturb the princess's spirit in heaven, while others shouted that the concubine was feeling unwell in the palace. Suddenly, someone exclaimed in alarm, "The young master's convulsions have returned." Xue Jiyuan had suffered from high fever before, and due to delayed treatment, he was left with a tendency to convulse when feverish. Outside, chaos erupted instantly, and the coffin was eventually set aside. It was Minister Li who finally shouted, "Your Highness, please take the young master back to the palace for treatment. Your Highness, please take the young master back to the palace for treatment." Amid the pleas, the noise around me gradually faded, and my consciousness began to scatter. When I opened my eyes again, I saw a young monk in monastic robes. He looked exactly the same, holding prayer beads, bowing with hands clasped. Amitabha, I have finally repaid the kindness of saving my life. Having stood by Xue Tingchen for many years, many of his trusted aides now held important positions across the land, and quite a few of them knew me. I lingered outside Peach Blossom Village for 2 months before managing to buy a false identity. Another half a year later, I made my way to the border between Zhong and Yu, blending in with the Yu refugees. However, the Yu dynasty's household registration system was strict, and women were not allowed to establish independent households. So, 6 months after entering, I got married. His surname was Qian, given name Le, and he was a merchant. I met him in the refugee camp. He originally ran a shop at the border between the two countries. After the war broke out, Zhou dynasty officials confiscated his shop and drove him into the refugee camp. I noticed a tear in his clothes, which was beyond repair, so I took it and mended it for him. After that, he often appeared by my side. When we entered the capital, everyone reported their household registration and obtained their identities. Only I had no parents above and no siblings below. The official in charge scratched his head and said, "With your looks, you should find a man to marry, otherwise, you'll have no choice but to beg on the streets." But before I could answer, Qian Le, who was with me, pulled me away. He said he still had 2 small shops and several acres of fertile land outside the capital. He also mentioned that his parents had passed away early, and his siblings were already married. Then he stammered, Why don't you marry me? I don't mean it like that, just marry me first to get your household registration. Later, when you meet someone you truly care for, I will naturally present you with a divorce agreement. Li Niang, don't worry, it's just a formality. His face flushed bright red. I respect Li Niang and would never dare to overstep. Qianle was a gentle and considerate man. Zhong Jinyao had long since died in that suffocating palace. Su Li Niang was willing to embrace a new life. The following year, I nearly died from a difficult labor, giving birth to a daughter. Qianle was terrified and said we would never have another child. I told her that it was difficult for me to conceive. Still, he insisted on taking medication for a year, completely eliminating the possibility of another pregnancy. 4 years passed in the blink of an eye, and our daughter grew up clever and adorable. Qianle wanted to send her to school in the future, so he sold the farmland, exchanged 2 shops for one in the capital, and moved the whole family to Yu capital. It was the Lantern Festival that day, and Qianle was busy preparing for the shop opening after the festival. I took Lana to see the lanterns. The lantern market was crowded, and since it was her first time in such a lively street, she disappeared from my side amidst the bustling crowd. I searched for her, sweating all over, for nearly half an hour before I heard her angelic voice calling mother. I turned around and saw a man in a headscarf holding Lan in his arms. The man stood under the lanterns, accompanied by a young boy who reached his shoulder. The boy seemed to snap out of a dream and rushed over almost frantically. "Mother, you're alive," he said, grabbing my sleeve. "I knew you wouldn't abandon father and me." I forced myself to unclench my fist and smiled. "Young master, you must have mistaken me for someone else. Lana, come, mother will hold you." I gently pried her hand away and took a few steps forward to take Lana. Naturally, Lan happily threw herself into my arms. However, the man holding her seemed to snap out of his daze. As soon as I took Lan, my arm was seized and shaken. It was all too overwhelming. His call was almost inaudible, but his hand trembled slightly as he held mine. His eyes were red, and he kept shaking me, calling out again and again, "Young master, you've mistaken me for someone else." I calmly looked up, holding Lana, and took 2 steps back, but the young boy rushed forward again and grabbed my hand. "Mother, I'm Yuana. Don't you want me anymore, mother?" He shook my arm again. "How did you end up in Yu capital? Why didn't you come looking for me? Don't you want me? Don't you even want Yuana anymore? Who are these imposters?" I shook off both of them with one hand. "I never had 2 children, I said, glancing at them indifferently. I held Lan tighter, turned around, and walked away. I recognized those 2 at a glance. Xue Jiyuan had grown taller, his appearance almost identical to Xue Tingxing in his youth. Xue Tingxing, however, had lost some of the sharpness he once had, especially when he looked at Lana with a smile. He had never smiled so gently at Xue Jiyuan. But I no longer wanted anything to do with them. Did Lana cause trouble for mother? After returning home, I bathed Lana, and as we lay in bed, she asked me this. I smiled and kissed her forehead. "No. Lana is good. Go to sleep first. Mother will prepare a late-night snack for father." Lana nodded obediently and closed her eyes quickly. I left a small lamp on and went to the kitchen. Chen Lue had returned from the shop with a bowl fan, and he must have been hungry, as usual. I prepared the food according to the time, and just as I brought it to the front hall, there was a knock at the door. I opened the door to a smiling face. "Wife," he said, bending down to embrace me fully. My husband smiled back at him, but out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of a figure in the shadows of the courtyard gate. As if struck by lightning, Jiang Li asked on the spot, "Has Lana gone to sleep?" Chen Lue replied, "She's asleep." Without looking at them again, I closed the door directly. In the middle of the night, there was a knock at the door, one after another. When I finally opened it, someone knelt before me. "Madam, this humble servant begs you to go see the prince." Xue Tingxing was staying in a remote inn. I pushed open the door and saw shards of porcelain and broken tables and chairs scattered all over the floor. Xue Tingxing sat dejectedly in a corner, a jug of wine in his hand. Hearing someone enter, he raised his hand as if to throw it. When he saw it was me, he froze in silence. I found a relatively intact bench and sat down. Xue Ting's eyes were fixed on me for a long time before he finally spoke. You married that merchant. That little girl is your daughter. How old is she? 5. After a moment of silence, he spoke again, his voice tinged with elegance. She looks almost exactly like you did when you were young. How could I forget? Xue Tingsheng smiled. Yao Yao, every smile and frown of yours, how could I? Your prince, ever forget? Zhong Jinyao, you actually married someone else. He suddenly smashed the jar of wine in his hand. We pledged our love in the peach blossom grove, and before our parents, we swore an oath of eternal devotion. How dare you marry someone else? How dare you bear another man's child? He stepped closer, suddenly gripping my shoulders. Did he touch you just now? Where did he touch you? I picked up a shard of porcelain and pressed it to my neck. If your highness cannot speak properly, there is no need to continue tonight. He flinched as if burned and quickly let go. I took 3 steps back, and Xue Ting followed suit. I put down the porcelain shard and averted my gaze. What does your highness wish to discuss with this commoner so late at night? Xue Tingsheng rushed forward again, grabbing my wrist. Yao Yao, come back with me. You are still my princess. This time, it was my turn to laugh. Your highness, do you think that's possible? I looked at him calmly, and Xue Tingshan stared back at me. His grip on my hand tightened bit by bit, but his face grew paler by the moment. Yao Yao, you know many things were beyond my control. The Li family is powerful, so you felt at ease, dividing your heart and dallying with others. I paused. Do you know why I dared to bet that you would bury me in the peach blossom grove? Without waiting for his response, I continued. The birthday gift you gave her, the gift for the consort's 18th birthday, was a piece of calligraphy you wrote with your own hands. Together in life, together in death. You thought I couldn't read those characters, but when you wrote them, I was the one who ground the ink for you. Xue Ting opened his mouth, but no sound came out. I brushed off his hand, stood up, and he shook his head, calling me to stay. What if I told you that only after you left did I realize how terribly wrong I was? Since you left, I've found it hard to swallow food and sleep peacefully at night. I am the king. I cut him off without turning back. You taught me to look further ahead, that with time, I would forget. Xue Tingshan did not appear again, likely having returned. The distance between Yu capital and Kyoto is vast, and he could not stay away from his nest for too long. However, Xue Zhiyuan remained. On the first day, he stood anxiously at the entrance of the courtyard, peering inside. On the second day, he crouched on the ground, dejected. On the third day, Qianle brought him in. Qian knew everything. That night when the knocking never ceased, it was he who persuaded my wife to go, saying, after all, he is flesh of your flesh. But as for this flesh of her flesh, Xue Zhiyuan, I was somewhat unsure how to face him. I loved him without reservation, gave for her without regret, and in the end, it became a sharp blade in the hands of others. Yet, I cannot use words like resentment toward the child I gave birth to. Xue Zhiyuan has grown up a bit after all and doesn't cling to me. Qianle tidied up a room for him, and he was very grateful. All day long, he calls out uncle and auntie and is especially kind to Lana. However, Lana doesn't quite like it. She always argues, Lana is not your sister's mother, only Lana's mother, not your mother. Every time this happens, Xue Zhiyuan seems drained of energy. His eyes reddening as he whispers, my mother. Xue Zhiyuan stayed here for 2 months, afraid of displeasing me. He never called me mother, but insisted on calling Lana sister. He also never made any special requests. Occasionally, when I made some snacks for Lana, he would beg her to share a little with him. 2 months later, 2 imperial guards arrived, and I knew he was about to leave. That night, he deliberately got caught in the rain, and when he developed a fever, I couldn't help but go to see her. She grabbed my sleeve and asked, Mother, are you really not going far away? Mother, I know I was wrong. Xue Zhiyuan didn't have a fever, just a slight cough, and with each cough, tears streamed down her face. Mother, I didn't understand those words back then. It was Li Zifei who taught me to say them. He said that as long as I said those words, Mother would let go. He promised me many benefits, and I couldn't resist the temptation. I always thought that since Mother loved me so much, she would never stay angry with me as I grew up. Only now do I realize how those words can wound the heart. 7 years have passed, and Xue Zhiyuan is now 12 years old. His voice is no longer as clear and bright as it once was. When he cries, it carries a sense of brokenness. His mother, Died.He, did it on purpose. She lured me over, coaxing me into indulging in pleasure and enjoyment. She claimed to have taken a potion to prevent pregnancy, yet the year after you left, she became pregnant. She said she loved me as if I were her own child, but when I had that fever, she hid it from the grand physician. Yuan pulled up his sleeve, revealing a deep bite mark scar on his arm. If I hadn't bitten my own mother, she would have wanted her child to die. She cried even louder, almost unable to form a complete sentence. Mother, child. I still remember Yuan reaching out to take my hand. I avoided my mother, knowing I was wrong, and promised never to say such hurtful things or do such things to her again. Yuan tugged at the hem of my clothes, his face streaked with tears as he looked at me, pleading, "Will you forgive Yuana?" There were countless nights when I held her, and as she cried, I cried too, but now, as he sobbed his heart out, I simply watched him calmly. Mother, Yuan called out to me again. I sighed, took out a handkerchief from my sleeve, and handed it to him. He hurriedly wiped away his tears himself. Seeing me bring out the blanket, he lay down. I blew out the candle and said, "Sleep, Your Highness." I don't blame him, I don't hate him, but I can no longer love her as I once did. Yuan has also left, and life has finally returned to normal. Qianle commutes to the shop every day, while I continue to do embroidery work as usual to help with household expenses. Lana, having seen enough of the city's hustle and bustle, no longer constantly thinks about going out to play on the streets. Instead, influenced by Yuan, he has developed an interest in writing and drawing. As soon as Qianle noticed this, he wasted no time in hiring a tutor to teach him at home. At the end of the year, the shop's business suddenly picked up. One day, I saw Lana sketching a small knife, and on a whim, I asked Zheng Jing to design a dagger and paid Qianle for it. Having spent many years in the military camp, I had a decent understanding of weapons. In the market, knives, swords, and even daggers were mostly designed for men, with very few suitable self-defense items for women. Qianle, thinking it was for my own use, put extra effort into having it forged by a blacksmith. She even found a gem to inlay on the hilt, making it small, sharp, and beautiful. On the very first day the dagger was displayed in the shop, we received over a dozen orders, and it soon sold out across Yuqiao. In just 2 short years, we had become well-known merchants in Yuqiao. 2 years is indeed enough time for many things to happen. It is said that the Li family of the Zhou dynasty was eradicated overnight, with 9 clans executed. The beloved Princess Ce, who had been favored for years, voluntarily entered the palace. Surprisingly, the long-standing conflict between the Zhou and Yu dynasties has now led to peace talks. First, envoys from the Yu dynasty traveled to Shangjing, followed by envoys from the Zhou dynasty bringing local products to the Yu capital. Rumors suggest that the rulers of both nations have already engaged in private negotiations. Yes, I did see Xue Tingxing at Yueju picking up Lana's son-in-law one day, holding a familiar straw-woven cricket in his hand. I only caught a glimpse of a corner of his robe as I turned around, and I didn't think much of it. Now, with bridges being bridges and roads being roads, I thought that was all there would be between us in this lifetime. He would remain his lofty prince, and I would continue as my ordinary merchant father. With no further intersections, it was a snowy day. Qianle was away on business in Lanzhou, and the snow had fallen early. I took him out into the courtyard to make a fire, roasting sweet potatoes. Just as a hint of sweetness wafted through the air, a white pigeon flew in, carrying a small note. Lana, curious, rushed over and handed it to me. I unfolded the tiny piece of paper, which was only large enough for 4 words. Mother, run quickly. Yuan's handwriting. There was no other child in this world who called me mother. Instantly, alarm bells rang in my head. Run, why, how, where to? Qianle wasn't here, and I had a child with me. I was no longer young and inexperienced, so I quickly calmed down. Whether to run or not, the family had to stay together. Without hesitation, I called for a carriage. Qianle returned home today, and if I went out now, I should be able to meet him in the eastern suburbs. However, before I even reached the eastern suburbs, I encountered him entangled in a fight with a group of people. Over the past 2 years, we've earned some silver, moved into a larger house, and hired some guards. But those guards are just ordinary household protectors. Qianle, as a merchant, only knows basic martial arts. Just as a large sword was about to strike him down, Lana burst into tears, crying, "Daddy." I followed closely behind, kicking the sword away, and Qianle rushed toward us. The masked men hesitated briefly but still pursued. Before their swords could strike, I embraced Qianle, and he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. The nearest bandit froze in shock. And his sword fell to the ground. I didn't touch him, it's not my fault. They were so frightened that they immediately knelt down. I saw Xue Tingxing again, still at that inn. Last time it was at night, but this time it was during the day. Last time, the inn was in disarray, but this time it was tidy and orderly. "Yao Yao, you've thanked me." He hurried toward me as if I were still his wife, as if there had never been any rift between us. "Your Highness, shall I have the imperial physician examine you?" As he approached, I raised my hand and slapped him. "Xue Tingxing, what exactly do you want?" Xue Tingxing stood frozen in place. I grabbed his collar and said, "If you dare harm Qianle in the slightest, I will never share the same sky with you in this lifetime." Xue Tingxing trembled, his face flushed, but his eyes turned cold. He chuckled softly and said, "What is Xue Tingxing doing?" "Naturally. I am here to bring my princess consort back to the court, my breath court," and for a moment, I was speechless. "Yao Yao, haven't you heard? A few days ago, I dismissed all the women in the rear palace. Yao Yao, no one will compete with you anymore. Are you happy?" I clenched my fists, staring at the smile on Xue Tingxing's lips. "Minister Li has been executed, and Li Ningyan committed suicide out of guilt. Yao Yao, it's time for you to return." I laughed, one chuckle after another. "Yao Yao, I have everything arranged. Once you bring Lana here, I will treat her as my own daughter and grant her a title. I've already thought it through. How about making her Princess Xuelan? After the boy returns, the two siblings." "Xue Tingxing," I interrupted him, "Kill me, kill Qianle, and kill Lana too. Without Qianle, Lana and I won't live on alone." The air fell silent for a moment. Xue Tingxing suddenly drained his teacup. "Zhong Jinyao, what is so good about that merchant? Haven't you seen it clearly today? He can't protect you at all." With reddened eyes, he rushed to me, grabbing my wrist. "What can he give you? A house, a few shops?" "He has nothing at all. Will you reject the wealth and honor I offer you with both hands for his sake?" He forced me to step back, step by step, until he pinned me against the wall and shook me. "Yao, I will never make that mistake again. Yao Yao, come back with me. Only you have ever been wholeheartedly devoted to me. Only by your side can I sleep peacefully. Isn't that right?" I tugged at the corner of my lips, and a sharp blade slid from my sleeve, piercing his shoulder without hesitation. "It hasn't been that way for a long time." Under his stunned gaze, I pulled out the dagger and stabbed again, forcing him to the corner of the table. "Xue Tingchen, not every choice has a path to turn back." I pulled out the dagger, blood staining the corner of my lips. Xue Tingxing slid down along the table. As I turned to leave, he grabbed the hem of my skirt, tears falling in large drops. "For decades, you and I have been inseparable through life and death, sharing a bond as close as lips and teeth. It was only a momentary rift, so why have you been so cruel to me? If I hadn't arrived in time today, Qianle would already be a corpse." I stared at him coldly, pulling the dagger from his hand. "Your Highness, if you have any grievances, direct them at me. Zhong Jinyao can accompany you in conquering the world, and he is not afraid to stand by Qianle in business either." The King of Hell tightened his grip on the dagger and strode toward the door, where the blazing sun shone brightly. I turned back to look at this man, Brother Ting, who had occupied my heart for half a lifetime. A mist of tears blurred my vision, obscuring the face that was once etched into my heart. "When I married you, you had nothing. Qianle and I had no classmate ties. But if someone wants to find you, you can't escape even to the ends of the earth." I never saw Xue Tingxing again either. On the second day after leaving the inn, a group of people hurriedly departed. Before Yudu left, he sent all kinds of rare and precious tonics. In truth, my body was fine. That fake death pill from years ago caused me to vomit blood whenever my emotions fluctuated intensely. That day, seeing Qianle on the brink of life and death, I was so terrified that I spat out that mouthful of blood, never expecting it would actually resolve the predicament at the time. In late spring, we opened a new embroidery workshop and business shop. Over this long period, I've come to appreciate the joys of doing business. Every day, I go to the embroidery workshop at the La Shop, while Lana goes to her son-in-law's place. In the evenings, the whole family gathers around the table for a lively dinner, living a peaceful and fulfilling life. It was a long time later that I finally heard news from the Zhou dynasty. They said that the valiant and skilled prince, for some unknown reason, had taken on a new identity, yet he stubbornly continued to lead battles at the border under this new name. In a major battle, he suffered severe injuries that would affect him for life, leaving him bedridden ever since. Fortunately, the young heir was capable and took over the management of the prince's estate and military authority. I heard this news in a tea house. "Mother, these hazelnut pastries are so delicious. Let's take some back for father." Lana cheerfully called the waiter to pack a whole box of hazelnut pastries. As we stepped outside, she slipped and nearly fell under a carriage. "The road is slippery in the cold weather. I've come to take my wife home." She smiled and reached out her hand to me. And I smiled back at her. The end. Click the little bell. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe. After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.